Your mom and dad. Your mom and dad. Your mom and dad. Your mom and dad.
Well, welcome home, family. It's your mom and dad. And cheers, sir, to another season of Love is Blind. Another season of Love is Blind where I am developing full body cringe.
Yeah, is this like one of those things where like this is a representation of everyone in the world and we're one of those and we're like, ugh? Or is it just like they select people that just generally have a vibe about them that is kind of on the low key hard to like?
I have to wonder if I were on this show, would everybody be so cringed out by me? I'm like, is this the way of the show? Or because I'm telling you, Evan, another season of Love is Blind where pretty much every person makes my whole body hurt. I got a few who don't, but in general, and not just that, I'm going to say this right out the gate. I'm making a prediction.
Okay.
This season of Love is Blind, by the end, will be the least successful season ever. I think there's going to be...
As in least successful, as in the relationships won't work.
I think there's going to be one wedding tops. Even though we have a couple, quote unquote, solid couples right now, I feel in my bones, and I am predicting that there's going to be one wedding tops, and it's going to be absolute disastrous on the final day.
Well, we forget that like the show's called Love is Blind, but it should be called Love is Blind and How Fast Are You Willing to Get Married? Right? Because even aside from the fact that love is blind or can be blind, it's also like, and get married in 3 weeks.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I'm like, I know plenty of people who would say that looks are extremely important for them. But I also know plenty of people in my life who I truly believe the physical is not important. They don't have to be like super attractive. But still, those people would not get married.
It would be 2 years of dating and then it would be a year of engagement. You know what I mean?
Getting engaged.
So it should be more called like, can love survive a ridiculous pace put on by producers? Correct. That should be the show title.
Correct. And this season especially, I don't know what it was. Maybe it's just coming off of, like so soon coming off of The Bachelorette. And now we're in Golden season that I'm in Bachelor zone and I haven't been free of reality TV for a moment. But there's something about this specific season so far where I'm like, was everyone declaring their love so passionately more quickly than usual? Like, was it way more extreme to you? I felt like left, right, and center after day one, everyone was like, I'm in love and I found my person. And because of that, we actually didn't really see a lot of like severe love triangles minus the one love square. But even like the Marissa, Bowden and Ramses like love triangle, Bowden got over that quick. But other than that, it was like, I didn't feel like we really... Everyone was pretty solid like day one. They
locked into their person. It was over. Yeah.
Immediate and so swiftly being like, I'm in love with you. And proposals.
Maybe they just picked people that were like in a little bit more of a desperate vibe in their personal lives. You know what I mean? Like how desperate are you? Like they're like really desperate. They're like, you're going to be great for this show.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? So I don't know what it is, but like just, and also a weird amount of like not a lot of checks and balances I felt. It's more like, it almost felt like this season's is like therapy hour for a lot of these people where they're just dumping.
That's a lot.
And they're just like, this is all the horrible shit that I've gone through or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they're like, anyway, so I love you. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, do you guys even have chemistry, or you guys, or is this just, or does it just mean a lot for you to like vent? And so you're confusing venting for like connection.
It was a lot of like, I'm gonna talk at you about all my problems, and when I take one deep breath, be like, wow, you're incredible. You have a heart of gold.
Yeah,
I can tell you're beautiful on the other side of this. I'm like, you didn't even ask them a single question.
Yeah, it's like,
what do you mean you know that they're a good person?
Exactly. Like I forgot who it was. I want to say it was Tim said like, my love language is listening.
Yes, he did.
And I'm like, to you? You know what I mean? Like,
that's not quite a love language, my guy.
Last time I checked, that wasn't a part of the 5.
Love language, you can't just make up your own.
Yeah, that'd be like saying, my love language is playing sports on the weekend. You're like, that's not a love language. That's just some shit you made up. You know what I mean?
My love language is going and getting a nice massage and a glass of wine.
Yeah, my love language is charcuterie boards.
Yeah. That's a nice cheese. A nice fromage is my love
and he's
language.
Like, my love language is when you listen to me. Like, oh, okay. You just made that up. You can't really do that. But my love language is which is the number one skin crawling moment of my life. Because I think we just watched 700 episodes of the show in the last 24 hours. But we're always let's get into Leo, right?
I mean, duh,
right?
Okay.
And I just want to start with
and
I don't know what that is and how it works, but it kind of did work.
It worked every time we did it.
It was like
it brought the woman back every time.
It felt like something my mom would do when I was like 5.
And he would
good morning,
and he would tip his head back and be like, it was like that. It's like that little bird on YouTube that goes.
Oh yeah.
He's just
Yeah.
And I'm like,
little look into our marriage there. That's just us.
Those
sending,
are the videos we send.
Videos
Parakeets,
of parakeets kissing their owners. But yeah. I mean, I am speechless.
I know, Evan.
When it comes to him specifically, but also how his antics worked for as long as they did.
I'm speechless about a few people on this season.
Let's get into it.
I really am. So, family, let's just get straight into this. Just a heads up. We are covering episodes 1 through 6 of Love is Blind, and we're going to be weaving in and out. So, spoiler alert, we're going to be hitting the number 6 episodes. We're talking about everything. So, if you haven't watched all of them, you're trying to stay spoiler free. We're talking about 1 through 6 right out the gate. And I think the best way for us to do this is to go couple by couple, their full length of their story. And also, apologies in advance because we binged 6 episodes and these ones were long too. They were long, double the length.
An hour and a half.
Yeah. And so my brain is pumping with information. So
it's a mixture of pumping with info and absolute melted. So it'll just be a stream of consciousness.
The brain is melted. So because we're covering 6 episodes in one today, we're going to go couple by couple. And I think what we're going to do, we're not going to go over every single moment. I think we're going to give our overall thoughts and opinions about them and their relationship and what we see it like moving forward. I think. Yes, I think that's good.
Perfect.
And then next week, we're going to be covering episodes 7, 8, and 9. So it'll be a little more
manageable,
a little more
specific.
digestible.
Yes.
So apologies in advance if this gets a little chaotic.
This is the Spark Notes.
The Spark Notes version. But yeah, I say that we just dive straight in. We dive straight in.
With the art dealer?
We gotta talk about the art dealer, but I do want to tell you one quick moment out the gate. Nick Lachey, we didn't see a lot of him.
No, I'm like, is this new that he shows up for 3 seconds at the beginning of the first episode and we never see him again?
No.
Don't we normally kind of see them interject, do some things?
No, this is what it's like every season. But I think this is why I brought this up, because after Perfect Match, our bodies are so accustomed to seeing Nick Lachey constantly.
Right.
And also in the past seasons, especially last one, was when Nick was, on his TikTok singing Halsey. And so that's the only thing that showed up on my feed were people reviewing and duetting Nick's TikTok. So in my brain, he was present so much. But this season so far, Vanessa is back. I guess him trying to get her out of the contract didn't work.
He contacted the lawyers to get her out. Didn't work.
But we do find out that Nick does not know what a situationship is, which is wild to me.
Also, he's lying. He definitely knows. He's trying to play old guy. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm just old guy. You definitely know what these things are.
I mean, I don't know.
You
have you seen his man cave? Have you seen the photos in his man cave? Just Godfather,
because he
acoustic guitar.
He also is a host of dating shows.
True, host of Perfect Match.
If you got to know what a situationship is. Doing Without You covers, Halsey covers, whatever. Maybe.
Yeah.
He's in dating shows. What he does exclusively now.
I was like, if he doesn't know what a situationship is and he's the host of a dating show, also doing the reunions and all of this, someone needs to give him a 101. Like he needs to get sat down and get a full college course on
Gen Z.
More, typical slang for the kids these days about relationships.
He's like, why aren't y'all courting? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, maybe we didn't pick the right one. But
Vanessa was like, let's role play that we're in a situationship later. She's like, except this role play is that we just go and date different people because we want to kill each other at this point.
We should role play that I'm cheating on you. Why?
We should role play that you and I move into 2 different houses and barely speak and go out on dates with different people. What a hot role
Doesn't that
play.
be fun? He's like, I guess. That I'm dating your best friend. What do you think?
I've always liked Jeremy.
Yeah, what?
Anyway, I just had to shout out our King Nick before we
Yeah.
dive in, and I sure hope to see him more later, but I fear we will not.
Yeah.
I fear we will not. Okay. We need to start with the art dealer. Let's start art dealer and Brittany, and of course, a little bit of sprinkled in Hannah in there
Yep.
before we shift into Hannah
And Nick.
and Nick.
Yeah.
But before we officially dive into the art dealer, family, got to take a quick pause. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. So fam, in these pods, we have some people who are really opening up, and we have some people who are putting on masks, maybe personas like Mr. Suave, perhaps, right? So think of a time recently when you didn't feel like you could be your full self, like you were hiding behind a mask. I recently was around some old-time family friends, and they'd known me in a different time of my life, and I found myself not feeling comfy being me, and found myself kind of putting on that mask instead. You know, October is the season for wearing masks and costumes, but some of us feel like we wear a mask and hide more often than we want to at work, in social settings, around our family. Therapy can help you learn to accept all parts of yourself so you can take off the mask, because masks should be for Halloween fun, not for our emotions. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try.
You know how much we love therapy. It's been a life changer and a life saver for me. Therapy has actually helped me break down the why around why I wear masks around certain social settings or family. It's really helped me process and set boundaries. BetterHelp is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule too.
Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. BetterHelp really makes sure that it's easy for you to prioritize taking care of you, because you're important, baby, okay? So take off the mask with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/momdad today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/momdad. BetterHelp.com/momdad. Okay, let's talk about Leo, the art dealer. Evan, I have never in my life been so captivated by someone for terrible reasons. I've never been so enraptured watching someone on TV in the worst way possible.
Yeah. He's just the worst. Like, he's the worst friend. Like, if you're friends with that guy, you know you can't stand him.
Oh, no. Can you imagine Leo's group of friends? Can you imagine that crew?
They're either the worst, or it's like they've been friends for a long time and he like takes them on his boat all the time, so they're like putting up with him because like he provides the like
they're sucking out the
dope
cash
stuff, you know
I
what I
just
mean?
imagine it's just a crew of really rich kids rolling around Washington DC being the snobbiest people of all time.
Well, the way I picture him is that his dad created this like art dealing empire, and then when he took over, like all the people that worked with his dad were like, oh, I fucking hate this Leo kid. And he comes in, he's like, boys, put the cash on the table. You know what I mean? Like he says annoying things like in the deals, and he's always trying to like, it's always about like, let me tell you, I was in Monaco with this model last week and it was incredible. Anyway, aren't you like living in the suburbs or something?
She
Anyway,
loved
I'm
me
sure
for
that's
who
great.
I am.
But it's just, he just seems like the worst.
I feel so badly for Leo's Rolex dealer. Because can you imagine how long it takes that man to decide between two watches?
Oh.
It's like, well, this one has a glass face, but it might love me for my money.
Yeah. Oh my
this
gosh.
one, it's very pretty, but is it pretty enough for me?
Well, the hard thing about him is that he doesn't want someone to love him for his money, but it's the only interesting thing about him. So he's going, I know it's the only way I'll get someone, so I have to just use it even though I don't want to use it. So his whole thing is like, I don't want to make this about money, but I'm incredibly well off and I am balling and I am awesome and I am successful. And listen, I was born into money, so like I don't even know what it's like to be you. And it's like I feel bad about that. And I'm just so rich and I really want a prenup. And and it's just crazy to be this
so
rich.
We're making sure that we're getting a prenup.
Yeah, and it's like he just can't stop talking about it. Yet it's shrouded in this idea that like I don't care about money.
Leo, I can guarantee this for a fact. Leo goes around in Washington D.C. where they are. He, the show Undercover Boss?
Yeah.
He does it on his own accord. He goes to bars and he like dresses in a way that he thinks is like poor looking.
Yeah.
And he just goes in and goes up to different women and pretends, and he'll be like, and she'll be like, what do you do? And he'll be like, oh man,
work with my hands.
Or, got a 9-to-5, but really barely pulling through. Tough office job, minimum wage. What about you? And in 3 seconds, he's like, actually, I got to tell you something, and lifts up his sleeve and he's got like his 3 Rolex.
It's been here all along.
It's been here the entire time. He undercover bosses
You passed the test.
hell out of it. And within 5 seconds, when he at one point said to Hannah, he's like, I just love the fact that, you don't ask me about Art Basel, and you don't ask me about, what my most expensive piece I've sold is.
And by the way, Art Basel is amazing, and this is a $20,000 watch. Thanks for asking. She's going, what? You just had this conversation with yourself.
I didn't say any of that. I don't even know what it is that you do exactly.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Really interesting guy. I mean, I would say he's a punisher at the highest level. Because he even brings it with the guys too. Like he'll be like, yeah, let's check this watch out. You know what I mean? And so it's like clearly his calling card to feel the worth. Obviously, there's a lot of issues there you could tell where he's like, the only way he feels that he could relate to or be cool or anything is just being rich. And so when he tries to not go there, but he knows.
I don't think he tries to not go there.
No. What I'm saying is like,
I think he might as well be wearing it.
His obsession with people thinking he's cool is just the most powerful thing in his life. All he can think about is just, how do I become cool to everyone? Oh, talk about how unrelatably rich I am, not realizing that's the quickest way to make people feel like they can't connect with you.
When he was sitting with the guys and he was just like, listen, you guys, I mean, I'm really fucking rich.
Right. What can I say?
He's like, what can I say?
No one asked.
He's like, country clubs,
private
brunch,
schools.
private schools, just wealth beyond your wildest dream. I know none of you guys know what this is like, but just wealth beyond your wildest dreams coming out your eyes. He's like, in fact, it's crazy. I grew up learning about Italian art phrases.
Yeah.
For example,
Sorezzatura.
He's like,
when you're trying, he's like, it's basically like me. When you're trying really hard to make it look like you're not trying. It was funny that he used that.
Oh, is that the one that he used?
Yeah.
I was like blacking out and typing like crazy.
It was like Sorezzatura, and he's like, it's like when an artist tries really hard to make it look like he didn't try. And I'm like,
oh, he is.
You are Sorezzatura.
But he's not doing a very good job of it.
No, but he's trying so hard to make it look like he's not trying but it's like, he doesn't even he's clearly learned that word because someone called him that in Italy.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean? Like, God.
I looked up after I watched this because I was like, you know what? Considering how much this man has been talking about his cash flow.
Yeah, like, it's got to be insane.
He better be absolutely loaded.
I want to see pictures of him and his dad on a super yacht.
I'm like, well, there's nobody left, which is a whole other thing. Everybody passed away within the period of
gnarly.
3 years, which is horrible.
Crazy.
But also, like, I feel like a lot of people were left head scratching. I'm not trying to make discount it because it's terrible, but
like,
a lot of people were like, what? And you're the only child? Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Crazy.
But I looked it up because I was like, this guy better be loaded to a degree that is like unfathomable. And the internet said it was somewhere, his net worth is somewhere between $600,000 and $10 million, which is an insane amount of money. Don't get me wrong, but I thought it was going to say
he talks like his dad's Jeff Bezos.
He talks like it was going to be like
billionaire
50
son,
million
or billionaire son.
I mean,
that's the way he talks.
Honestly,
When someone says in a modern era,
like, I am so incredibly rich.
I am so incredibly well off.
Yeah.
I mean, in my mind, I'm hearing hundreds of millions. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe that sounds so like out of touch, but just because of the way he was saying it, I was expecting it to be bananas.
Yeah.
Like psycho.
Yeah, like I can't stop traveling to foreign lands and just on my yachts.
Yeah.
It's like,
but so what I did notice though, when I was reading a little bit about him, I started dying because there was a paragraph in some little bio thing about him that said, Leo took the family business, and I'm sure he wrote this. It was like Leo took the family business and really upped it by jumping into the modern era and staying relevant by diving into non-fungible tokens.
Oh my gosh, he's a crypto kid.
He's an NFT lord.
Yeah. And those things hit the floor, so they're worth nothing now.
All of a sudden, all I could think about was family. I don't know if you see this, but when the NFTs were popping off, there were these younger men who would own them, and they'd open up their house to these house parties and just have influencers everywhere, like looking at them and purchasing it. The amount of parties that Leo has had trying to become best friends with Jake Paul is unfathomable to me. Like, this man has sent Jake Paul 55 DMs begging him to come to his gallery and look at one of his NFTs.
He has lost half of his family's wealth. There's no question about it.
There's no question that he's absolutely sinking the family biz.
He bought tons of NFTs and they went to zero.
He is sinking. But now that I know that it's NFT that he's now really focusing on, it all made sense in my head. Because when they were talking about like Van Gogh, and I'm like, I can't even imagine this kid around like a truly gorgeous work of art.
Yeah, he'd
be
and like, then all
of a sudden, when I heard NFT, I'm like, this all makes sense to me.
Could you imagine like drinking wine with him? What kind of annoying person he is. What he sends back wine constantly. He's looking at the bottle. He's checking if it's corked. He's just like, don't worry, I know what I'm doing here.
If it's barrel,
what year is this? Yeah. Oh, he's insufferable with that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I can't lie to you though. What a character.
Electric. I mean, fantastic TV.
The lines that came out of this guy's mouth nonstop were truly unbelievable. I don't feel like we've seen it ever before.
Well, he's got such
a
like
salesman
at a party energy where he's just like, God, he's just kind of like cornering you and telling you about the business you should start with them. And like he's got that just trust fund Adderall kid at a party energy, like won't stop talking.
But as much as I do feel like he's sinking his parents' estate into the ground, I do feel like he is probably a good salesman, because we saw
it seemed
him
to work.
Rope people back in.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Brittany. So Leo's between Brittany and Hannah. Now Brittany walks in and Brittany said, I'm not like you other girls. I don't want to be a boss babe. I want to be a trophy.
Which I really appreciate.
I loved it.
I love when someone is like, listen, I know this isn't like the most.
I know this isn't
I'm not
okay
going to get
say.
cred for this, but just like, listen, I focus on my looks. I focus on being a muse. And
I love being
seducing powerful men. And I'm trying to kind of do a slightly different version of that, but let's not play games here. I don't want to work. I want to chill. I want to be a trophy wife. And I was kind of like, you know what? Love just the honesty there.
I kind of love her.
Yes.
She's one of the people that I enjoyed because I'm like, you know what? She really just put it all out there.
Yeah.
She didn't fake. She wasn't screwing with anybody, and she put it out there for the men too. She was like, so I have a very important question to ask you. Some of these losers in here were talking about splitting it 50-50, and I just want to let you know that I'm not paying for anything.
Yeah, it was so funny. She's like,
just said
so what do you think about splitting the bill 50-50? He's like, well, I'm incredibly well off, Leo says. So you don't have to do that.
He's like, I could buy the restaurant, baby girl.
Maybe we do it just kind of in the beginning to kind of set a precedent. She's good. I'm so glad you said it. I feel the exact same way. A lot of these guys are like, I want to do 50-50. No way, dude.
You're like, it's gross.
It's so gross. I'm like, you gotta love someone who's just like truly themselves.
And there was a moment that I've been racking my brain about this. I can't figure it out. That at one point, so when she was talking to some of the guys, you find out she's an esthetician. She also helps a beach cleanup, you know, something like that. And then at one point, she keeps talking about how smart she is and people aren't giving her credit for it. And then I think Leo is like, like the fact that you told me that you published a book is incredible to me.
Did you look up her book?
I need to do that.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm like, she published a book, and then later she was writing a letter, and she's like, I've never written this long before. And I'm like, I need to know about this.
You're like,
book.
what about the book?
Like,
was that an NFT? You know what I mean? It was like a picture of a book, and that was the NFT that you sold.
Like, I need to know about this book.
She's like, I didn't write it. ChatGPT wrote it for me.
You're like, I put in a couple ideas.
And I created my own publishing company, and I put it out through YouTube.
I need to know about this book. I'm fascinated. But you know what I have to say about Brittany is, though at the end with the Leo acceptance of the proposal jumping ahead, I do think Brittany is much smarter than she is given credit for. I really do think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying she's not smart, but it's okay to be what you are. You don't have to be smart.
But I do think she is, and this is why.
Because she got, I mean, not to fast forward to the end there. It's like he literally strung her along, and then just at the very end goes, by the way, will you marry me even though you're my second choice? And she's like, I can't believe you made me feel like total shit, and the fact that like you've basically put me on the back burner this whole time. Yes, I will marry you. And it's like, what?
But
am I missing something?
But I
here?
think the reason that she got caught up in it, and this is why, okay, number one, it takes an intelligent individual. It takes smarts to do what she was talking about before, which is the like woo you in with my eyes and like, you know, there is an intelligent art form that when you have someone who's like declaring this is what I do, that is part of this. I think what happened with Brittany is that Brittany said she started to feel really insecure because she's used to getting any guy she wants with those eyes and that energy. And for the first time ever, it's just her personality. And she was losing out to Hannah.
Very smart.
And I think she started to, and she recognized it, which I think takes emotional intelligence, that she recognized that in the ITMs, I think she's a lot more emotionally intelligent than a lot of other people that were in there.
Yeah.
She recognized it and she was like, you know what? I think this is what's happening to me. And I think that's the only reason that Leo roped her back in, which is why then the second she saw him, she's like, it's going to be pass. It's going to be a no.
You know what? I have to agree with you that the best looking people seem to struggle sometimes because they don't get to use one of their superpowers.
100%.
Right? So
if you're used to being able to walk into a room and have everybody look at you, I would imagine all of a sudden when you're behind.
3/4 of the work is already done.
Yes.
If you're looking at dating someone.
I have particular friends in mind that I'm like, when we walk into a room, all eyes are on them and they can chat up whoever they want. You know, all of a sudden, even if they're a great chat, even if they're smart and funny, you still aren't getting that like immediate
But the people that aren't, they'll like drop dead as quickly. They have to work harder.
Of course.
Maybe, you know, so they have more, the muscle is more exercised. So it's interesting how the Nick Dorcas, the Leos, like who probably do a lot of hitting on girls at the bar and striking out, but they're like constantly trying, are better at the like, don't show my face and I can kind of create a character.
Yeah, I mean, Leo's in a whole, I don't even know how to describe
but I'm just
Leo.
saying like create the character energy that they're kind of both, these guys specifically are used to like creating characters to kind of like see if it'll work. Without showing the image, it's interesting how that worked.
Yeah.
Because she even said, she's like, I'm used to wooing guys with my eyes.
But that's why I think that's the only reason I think she ended up saying yes to him. Because I think she wrote that letter saying no. It was her like goodbye letter at the end. So basically, family, what ends up happening is, you know, as I'm sure most of you saw, Leo's in between, like I said, Brittany and Hannah. And Brittany clearly, Leo's her only one that she's really focused on. The second, God bless her, she heard that he was like, by the way, I'm absolutely loaded. How do you feel about that? She's like,
that's about 80% of what I'm looking for right there. Perfect. Love it.
So she's like, that guy's my only option. But then there's Hannah, who was actually being pretty mellow with him.
Yeah.
And not ever getting really phased when he would bring up. So Leo, being the absolute, I don't even know, the absolute lunatic Leo is, would say things like Brittany, when he would be telling her, when she'd have a moment where she was vulnerable and he was like, you're everything.
Yeah.
I'm falling for you. The way that he would show her love is he'd be like, you know, I just want to let you know, when we walked in here today, you were number 2, but now you both are tied for number 1.
Yeah.
That was how he would compliment these women. He'd be like, just so you know, now you're neck and neck. You were a little behind, but now you're neck and neck.
It's almost like certain people can, I guess, pull off that, like give you scraps and then you're begging for more energy.
I couldn't even believe
he
how
would
much he said
like,
that.
You're not number 1, but at least you're tied for number 1 now.
And this man brought up the same amount that he brought up how much money he had was the amount of times that in the pod with one of the women, he'd be like, well, you know, I really like you, but it's tough because, you know, this other woman, wow. Yeah. Absolutely wow.
So he almost played kind of a golden fedora energy, which is like,
big golden fedora, actually.
It was big, like, I'm going to play other women against, like in the rule books, it says if you hit on a girl's friend
yes,
instead of her, she gets like competitive. So then like you kind of get her interested.
Yeah, so while he had them in the pods, it was a little bit
it was
like,
a little bit like if she starts getting too comfortable, I'm going to start saying how great the
and
other
the way
one
that
is.
he would wind up, I was convinced he was about to compliment them. He'd be like, wow, you are
average at best. You're about as medium as it gets, and medium's better than low, so you should be happy.
He would take a deep breath and go, wow, you are really tying for number one right now. And I'd be like, what are you saying to this person?
It was fascinating.
I mean, this man just, like you said, crumbs. At one point when Brittany was giving her heart to him and being like, I need you to make a decision, please. Is it me? Is it Hannah? Da, 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 da. And he was just like, I cannot decide. But listen, I promise you that in our next date, I will plan something special for you. I will bring you a surprise. And she's like, okay, Leo, I appreciate that. That would mean a lot to me. And then he showed up and he brought her a blanket from the rooms with a spray of his cologne on it. And he goes, when I deliver, I deliver.
Yeah.
I'm like, you brought
money is incredible. Money does shield a lot of issues because
you brought her, you told her you were going to plan something for her and you sprayed cologne on a blanket from the men's lobby. And he said, I told you I'd deliver. She
giving. She
tossed the blanket, by the way. She never touched it. Did you notice that she threw it right away?
I smell better than this. It's giving very it's giving like a movie version of Rich People.
Yes.
Where the wife catches the husband in bed with the mistress. He kicks her out and goes, babe, I'm so sorry. Comes back with a diamond earring. And she's like, it's okay.
All is
like
forgiven.
It's very like
he's
80s rich people
vibe.
Yep. But see, that was okay to me.
Yeah.
I felt I'm going to have a surprise for you tomorrow. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to figure it out. And then she's like, thank you. And it's like, he just confessed that he's pulling shit out of his ass to like appease you and how insecure he's made you feel. And you're like buying it. It's crazy.
Oh, it's the same way when he was like saying all these things that were hurting her and she was so sad. And he's like, so what type of diamond do you want?
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm not going to tell you unless you tell me that I'm the only one who's going to get a diamond. And he goes, well, I can't tell you that, but I bet you like a big fat rock.
She's like,
thin gold
yeah.
band. And she goes, yeah.
And, yeah.
But then did you notice that is such a fucking line he uses, by the way? That guy has asked so many women what rings they like, okay? He asks every woman at the bar the amount that he knew about like the different cuts and everything. Yeah. And then the way he tossed it, and when she then would say, well, I was actually not really into an opal, I was more into a square. And he's like, I knew it. Everything she'd say, he'd go, I know. I just know you. Even though he would be wrong about stuff. But his knowledge of rings, that man, it's not just because he has money. That man throws around all the time. That he goes up to a woman, his party trick is like, I bet I know what type of diamond ring you'd want.
Just to wrap this concept up, what he missed it too. He was like oval or square, and she's like oval. And he's like, which is like 50 per, like, well, there's probably like 4 cuts total you can choose from. So it's like not like crazy.
Yes.
So he guesses 2, so he's 50% right. And she goes, yeah, oval. And he goes, I know what you want.
And that's what I'm saying. He literally was giving him a half of them wrong.
It's like, you're not
and
even
then he
like,
would just be like, yeah, I knew that. I knew, you know what?
I bet you want like a diamond ring, huh?
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah,
and
I know,
then
I know
he'd be
you.
like, I knew, even though I didn't say that, I knew in my heart that it was going to be, that it was going to say that. And I could just, it's just because I know every part of you.
It's like, what's 10 times 10? It's like 106. Like, no, 100. I knew. I was going to say that. I know the answer. But it was just like, I just kind of wanted to hear what you had to say because I care about you. And I wanted to hear that first. And I love this class. My dad's going to stop sending money to this college if you flunk me.
By the way, when they were having that conversation after the blanket, her covering her whole self with the blanket where you couldn't see her at all, and they're having this emotional conversation and she was covered by the blanket. I know it was sad for her. I couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah.
Her under a pile of blankets with that cute little voice was killing me. She's like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. And you just saw this pile of blankets.
Unbelievable.
But let's then talk about, speaking of his tactics. Let's talk about his conversation with Hannah.
Love it.
Okay. But first, family, another quick pause. So family, you know about our haunted home, okay? I feel like it's been really quiet in the spook department recently, but then one of my besties spent the night a few weeks ago, and I don't think I've told you this, but the next morning she woke up and she was like, I definitely had a full ghost encounter last night, and gave me the details of it.
Okay.
Yep. So I immediately downloaded like 7 ghost hunting apps that had been on my phone. I re-downloaded them and started using them around our house. And I would have probably forgotten about those apps and kept paying for them unnecessarily for months if my savior, Rocket Money, wouldn't have been there to remind me and cancel the subscriptions for me. I love Rocket Money so much. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I am no Leo, okay? I'm looking to grow my savings. I'm not a Leo. I can't just, I don't have diamond rings falling out of my pockets.
Yeah, right. It just, we're not as
it
lucky.
is what it is.
Listen, over 74% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. With Rocket Money, I don't have to remember every subscription or worry about forgetting any because I can see them all laid out right in front of me. And for any that you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them with a few taps. With Rocket Money, you can easily create a personalized budget with custom categories to help keep your spending on track and see your monthly spending trends in each category to know exactly where your money is going. You also get alerts if bills increase in price, there's unusual spending activity, or if you're close to going over budget.
Oh, that feature has saved me multiple times over the years. Also, I love their new goals feature that automatically saves money for you without you having to think about it. Whether your goal is to pay off credit card debt, put away money for something like a house, or just build your savings, Rocket Money makes it easy. If I was in these Love is Blind pods and heard that a person across from the wall uses Rocket Money, I'd be like, this is a green flag for me. I appreciate this. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/momdad. That's rocketmoney.com/momdad. rocketmoney.com/momdad. Rocket Money has helped us and saved us a lot. Okay. This is the best. rocketmoney.com/momdad. Okay, so Leo is stuck between Brittany and Hannah. And I will say this, Brittany in the conversation was saying things like, I don't think that my future husband is going to be this caught between two people.
Yeah.
Like you are saying that you are equally caught between the two of us. And I want to say this about Brittany. I know that she wants to be a trophy wife and all these things, but I think love means a lot more to Brittany than she is letting on.
100%.
I think Brittany, when she read that letter, she has this ushy gushy center. Like she wants love. And you know what? She wants the cash too. And I believe, Brittany, that you will find both, my dear.
How old is she?
I don't even
in her
remember.
30s?
Maybe early 30s or late 20s.
To me, it gave me the vibe of like, for my 20s,
yeah,
I was a trophy girlfriend.
yeah.
And she even said I dated nothing but rock stars, athletes,
What a
the whole
roster,
thing.
yeah.
But then at the end, she kind of like confesses to being like, I hated always feeling like it was me versus all
Yeah.
other women. Like it was, these guys could get nothing but like 10s.
Yeah.
And I was always having to compete and feel like I was never safe and blah, blah. So you could tell she's in a transitionary period.
Yeah,
She's
maybe-
like, I'm new to this whole like,
Love thing.
like it being
I
about a
have to like
personality thing. So you could see her like it's growing pains of like,
Yes.
things are changing in me.
Yes.
But I'm also like completely used to just being like my whole identity is my looks. So I'm
And
you
maybe
can tell it's new.
And maybe this is the thing that she needed to, maybe when she's watching it, it's like, you know what? Yeah, finances are important to me and I want to be with someone
Yeah.
who I'm not having to maybe be like concerned about what our financial situation is, but maybe more important than dating someone who's loaded and famous is being with somebody who truly loves
Brittany,
you.
I think you just got to marry like an old guy who's rich. Because I think like, you know what I mean? Like the young athletes, yes, you're chasing them. But the 55-year-old kind of like not super good looking, but like decently good looking billionaire guy, like that might be your middle. That's the middle center for you.
Maybe that's the pool. Maybe that's the pool. So Leo, yes, he's caught up between the two. At this point, Brittany hears Hannah come in, and we'll get into Hannah and Nikki D, but Hannah comes in and basically is like, I'm done with Leo. I have moved on officially to Nikki D.
Yeah.
So Brittany is celebrating, and Hannah's like, I'm going to go tell Leo that it's over.
It's really interesting, too, just on the side note, that Hannah's caught between the two toxic guys.
I
just thought about that.
I think people will disagree with you about Nikki D being toxic.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into it.
Okay.
But he drives me up a wall.
No, I'm not saying she's perfect. I'm just saying it's funny how the trio kind of works together.
Hannah is such a hot mess.
Oh, no, I'm saying it's funny how they all kind of found each other. They're all like, we're all kind of toxic. Let's hang together.
Let's all be together. But she goes in with Leo, and this then results in one of the wilder pod conversations I've ever seen. She tells Leo that she loves another man, and Leo is just like, fuck, Hannah, what? Hannah, what are you saying? And he is so aggressive.
It was like he got caught cheating or something. It was almost like, I found your phone and I saw all your texts with all these other women, and he's going, oh, dude, chill. Why would you even go through my phone? Like, he's gaslighting her. He's like trying to find any way to get her to like basically realize that the mistake was hers somehow, and that like,
he absolutely flipped on her
because he knew Brittany was like on the edge, and that he had pushed her to the very edge.
And he was like, I had 2 women safe in my pocket, and now one is gone. So now, and right before, he had told one of the guys that Hannah was, he thinks, his number one, but to be fair, he was going back and forth constantly. He at one point had a conversation with numerous of the men being like, she is very immature and da. So like, who even knows how this guy actually felt about Hannah? But he lost his mind on her, like literally lost his mind. She's like, I'm so effing into you. How sure are you? Have you made up your mind? Like panicking. Tell me now.
How could you do this?
And she's sobbing and so overwhelmed.
Because she wasn't ready for this.
Now, everything that the way in which he said this to her, and pretty much everything he said, was horrific. But I will say there was one moment in this terror was a nugget that I was like, well, as much as he's saying this in the most horrific way possible, he said, you just said yes to him because he told you that he loved you first. And I do think that there's might be truth to that. Yeah. I think that if Leo would have told her first that I love you and let's make this official, that she might have gone with Leo.
Which is a part of this game.
Yes.
Right? Which is a part of this game is like, how far do you go with the whole I'm seeing other people?
Yeah.
Because I do feel like we saw, there is something to go all in on one person. Then they feel valuable. Then they kind of all end up saying, I love you. And I do feel like Dorca just kind of went there quicker with her.
He did.
Leo did the classic. He was trying to like hedge bets. He was going like, I have 2 deals.
Yeah.
And if I keep going back to them, I'll tell them they raise their number. Yeah. They'll raise the number. Then and then both of them are going, wait a second. Well, now we can't afford this anymore. So he did this to both of them, hoping that he could just get one to lose, one to figure it out. Then he realized he pushed it one date too far.
Because he's like, when I go to Patty Stanger, the Millionaire Matchmaker, there's like 17 women and I have my choice.
I get my choice.
I have my choice of them. Exactly. So this is just what I'm used to, is the Millionaire Matchmaker letting me just decide the bundle that I would like.
So he just won one date too far for both of them.
Yes.
That he pushed. And like, if he would have made the decision for Brittany the day before, he might have been able to get Hannah. But he did the like, I'm going to sleep on it now and I'm going to do this. And then he went way too far.
So there was a little nugget of truth. I do think that Hannah is wired that way, though, a little bit, where if whoever would have asked first, she would have said yes to make it official. But again, the way in which he handled this, my jaw was on the floor. I could barely watch it. It was so upsetting.
He was panicking.
Absolutely panicking, being terrible to her. And she's like sobbing and she's like, I need time. He's like, tell me now. Yeah. It was full goblin mode. He lost his mind. And then Hannah does end up, telling Brittany that he was yelling at me, and tells her about the conversation because she would want to know if she was in Brittany's shoes, On the flip side, Leo is telling the guys, including Nick, he's like, man, you know, this was tough, but she was crying so hard. Like she really was, her emotions, you know, she could tell it was tough for her. She was crying so hard, basically letting Nick know, like, I don't know how she feels about you. And then he's like, Hannah, you know, I thought that she would have shown me strength not to sway in her feelings, but it shows me a lot about her. And the idea of these men not knowing, him going full DEFCON in the pods and then coming back and being like, I thought she would have been able to, you know, really show me emotional maturity. Cut to him screaming at her in the pods. He comes back, it's like a full business meeting with the guys, and he's like, it really showed me that she has immaturities that, you know, she needs to work on.
Which is classic, like, I can't admit vulnerability, because then that next part when he then re-meets with her after she's like decided on Nick, and he's all of a sudden like, honestly, it's a great choice, and I am happy that you're with him. And he starts lying, being like, oh yeah, I didn't want, I told producers not to have a meeting. He's like, us. Yeah, they were begging to talk to me.
No date.
So like he switched the whole thing, was like, I'm quitting before you could fire me energy. But I loved how at the end of that, he's like, Nick's amazing. You're going to love him. He's a lesser man than me, and I know you like lesser men energy. You know what I mean? So he's kind of like weak and lame, and you're going to love weak, lame guys. Yeah. But if you could just do me one quick favor.
One quick caveat.
And just not tell Brittany about this, because she's going to think that I, you know, chose her second, which I did, but I don't want her to know that.
Do me a favor. Can you really let her know? Go back in there and let her know how I have chosen her the entire time. Also, can you make sure let Brittany know this was a mutual breakup between me and you, Hannah? Like, let's be real.
And you're not even friends with Brittany, right? Like, you hate Brittany, so you wouldn't even want to talk to her anyways. And she's like, well, Brittany's a friend of mine. He's like, let's stop talking about this. He realized it was like, I shouldn't even brought this up.
When he said to her, this was a mutual breakup and you should tell her that, I'm like,
amazing.
Mutual?
That was amazing.
And then even mid this, as he's saying the wildest things known to man, he goes, yeah, you know what? It's God. I love Brittany so much, Hannah. You don't even understand. Like, you don't even understand the love that I feel for Brittany that's pulsating through my veins. Like, in fact, we're sitting here talking, but like all I'm thinking about is like how much I want to be with Brittany instead.
Yeah,
I'm like,
we're such good friends.
The audacity of this man, and the audacity continues when then he goes and talks.
He's just a slime ball.
10,000.
That's what he is, really.
10,000. And this man, can you imagine him selling a piece of art and the person, like, it shows up to the person's mansion and it's kind of damaged, and he gets on the phone with them. He's like, listen, so here's the thing. When you and I were talking in a conversation, to me, what you were giving to me is you wanted texture in your art, and you're a texture because you see past things like perfection. And so, yeah, you could be mad at me about the way that, you know, we shipped this and transferred to you, and you could be mad at me, and I'm really sorry that I didn't hear you out the way you need to be hear out. But what I know is I know who you are, and you love texture, and what this just did is it elevated your piece.
And being mad is wasting emotion. And just like this artist, he didn't waste time.
And you don't want to be not like an artist, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what you really want us to be like an artist. So.
And then he's definitely the guy that gets off the phone and looks at his buddy and goes, I could sell these people shit. Doesn't even matter. They're idiots. Like, he's sketchy, dude.
He is so sketchy. And then the sketch continues when he then meets up with Brittany.
Oh, so fantastic.
Bless her heart, she writes this letter to him and is like, this isn't going to work. You've made me feel lesser than. You didn't make your decision. By the way, everybody, Evan was watching this after I watched it, and he kept pausing the show every 5 minutes to give me a line that Leo said. He's like, I'm like, I did watch it.
Yeah, I did watch it. Sorry.
But you then, when she did the full letter, you paused afterwards and you're like, good for her.
Yeah, good for her.
She's ending it. And I just was like, kind of like, okay. Because then after she does the entire laying it on him with this letter, he goes, I hear you. And can I just read something that I wrote for you? And she's like, okay. And he then proceeds to read to her a horrible poem. That includes a proposal in it.
Yeah.
Evan, the audacity. He just brushed past everything she said and said, can I read you a letter? And proposes in the letter. And
she just goes, yeah. And I was like, what? I had to rewind it because I was like, I think that this is a mistake. This, like, they left a weird edit in. And then, yeah. Like, what? Didn't you just say you're like over him and he completely like wrecked you? Crazy. But it's almost like my brain was like, did she sign a contract for the show and didn't realize that like you can say no? It's almost like she knew. It was like, did she die? Because then let's fast forward to the reveal.
Okay.
Into the reveal, and she's clearly like,
the all-time reveal, which by the way, in ITMs beforehand, in Leo energy. He's like, yeah, you know what? Here's the thing. I love Brittany for who she is. And at this point, listen, a Victoria's Secret model could walk by and I wouldn't even notice because all I see is my future wife, Brittany.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shut up, Leo.
Yeah. And Brittany is so not into the way he looks. It's incredible.
She walks out and it is like her face drops in a way that I have never seen. I knew the second he'd walked out, he was going to be so excited because she's a beautiful woman. And I'm like,
well,
oh,
she
no.
even said that. She goes,
Yeah.
I knew you'd be excited.
She knew he was going to be excited. And he came out because Leo's biggest fear was that the door was going to open and she was not going to be attractive. He was terrified of it. So he had this release of like, oh my gosh.
Shit.
And Evan, the way that he was handling her gave me a rage I cannot explain.
He was
to
just
you.
grabbing at her and she was trying to pull away the whole time. And she even said at one point, which is epic, and would have like, he's just used to like being gross and pushing through it. Because she at one point,
you can see the way he was grabbing.
Yeah.
Did you hear her grabbing the back of her hair? And I was like, get your hands off of her.
And at one
just because you're engaged, like get your hands off of her.
Also read body language. She was not into you.
She is not into you.
But my favorite was that she goes, in the middle of him like kissing her, she just goes, this is the most awkward day of my life. Like imagine meeting the love of your life who you've proposed to for the first time. And they say, this is the most awkward day of my life. I mean, I would fall into a crumple and just melt away. And he was just kind of like, no worries, no worries. You don't have to say you love me. I'll keep saying it. Like he's used to being like repulsive to people, and he's lived in being repulsive for so long it didn't even faze him.
And he was just like, I'm like, Leo, you're not a rom fantasy character who can look at someone and just be like, it's all right, I'll just keep telling you I love you, and it's okay that you're not ready to say that you love me. Nothing can turn me away. I'm like, Leo, you know what would have turned you away if she would have walked out and been unattractive? You would have walked.
Oh my gosh.
If she would have walked out and been unattractive, Evan, he would have sat her down and been like, listen, the love that you and I share between each other is absolutely incredible. But what I really felt in the past few hours since we parted was that technically I told you the proposal would come tomorrow. So I didn't really propose yet to you. And I've been thinking, and actually you give me friend energy, and also I don't feel like I can trust you because you were bringing up money too much, and that's my biggest fear. So like, let's be friends. And remember, I didn't actually propose to you because I said I was going to do it tomorrow technically. So like, it's going to be a no for me. If she would not have been beautiful, 100%. And he just goes off afterwards. So they basically are like, he knows that there's a chance she's not going to Mexico with him, because then it's like Miami instead.
Well, real quick, I just wanted to say, iconic of her, because she goes, I don't want to go to Cabo. Okay. Like, I don't even, is that where they went? Yeah. So. I don't want to go to Cabo. I want to go to Miami. I also have another guy that I'm seeing in Miami.
Yeah. So can you just drop
it'll be perfect when you book me at the Four Seasons for a week.
I'm going to ditch your ass.
I'll dump you and then be in Miami for a week and meet up with, Jerry.
My deepest, sweetest prayer.
That's exactly what that was
that
too,
she
by the way.
Ghosted his ass.
She's like, I do not want to be all the way down there.
I hope she ghosted his ass so hard is that they were in Miami and it was like, they saw each other like once or twice, and then she just like ran up his bill and just ghosted the shit out of him.
If I go to Mexico, I'm going to be around all the people. Now there's filming crew, but if we just go to Miami, I can kind of make you think that like something might work, but then absolutely bail on you
just
there. And I'm still in America, so I can just jump right back and I don't have to like
back home. Yeah, DC's not too far away. No, and when he left and he was just like, holy fuck, she's hot. I'm like, ew, every part of my body. But shock and dismay when up on the screen pops the producers, they were not chosen as one of the sex couples, which was shocking to me. And I was like, the producers live for drama. Why didn't they do this? I saw, and who knows if this is true or not, because I believe very little of what comes out of the mouths. But one of the producers said that they really are looking for couples who they believe will last to the end. And they did not feel that they would. So they said
Annoying.
no. And I was like, I don't believe that.
I was like, pay him extra money, get him down to Mexico, because it would have been amazing to see that explosion.
I don't believe that's not the reason. And I'm honestly really grateful that it did end. Even though I would have loved to see Leo and Brittany in Mexico because of the other
amongst
couples.
The other people,
but for Brittany's sake, I'm glad that it ended because he was so all over her and it was like, get away from her. And vibes. And it was like, no, this woman.
She sensed it too. She's like, get me out of here.
Yeah. So there's Hannah and Brittany, but we do not see them in Mexico. But let's move on to another couple that we saw in Mexico
Yeah.
and saw drama with in Mexico, a couple that was connected to Leo and Brittany, and that was Hannah and good old Nikki D.
Good old Dorcas Maximus.
Nikki Dorcas.
I call him Dorcas. I don't call him anything else.
It's Dorca, right?
Yeah.
Nikki Dorca.
I call him Dorcas.
Nikki Dorcas.
This to me is like, I kind of craft this like fake personality to make women think that I'm this badass. Monica said it best. Like in the pods, he
His
had
BDE was
huge BDE
crazy.
energy. Was just like this guy, and she even said this guy better be hot as hell. And I saw him, and I go, huh, small. Like, you know what I mean? The biggest, like his whole thing is like, let me create this persona. His whole thing is like ex-football star, this, that, and the other. But then you're kind of like reading through the thing, and you're kind of realizing like probably was a backup to the backup to the backup in a C league, and then like is now like doesn't make any money because he even says later to Hannah like, well, you know, it takes time to work up to where you need to get to. So his whole thing is not being honest. His whole thing is let me create this fake reality, which is I'm this badass football player baller. And in reality, you're just a guy who like tried to be a kicker and didn't. And now you're just kind of like trying to sell real estate. It's like, instead of just being real about your life, you're creating this over the top fake thing, alter
Mr.
ego.
Suave, as he was called. He was the one out of everybody who made my body cringe to a point that I have no words for.
Yes.
The cringe I got from him, it pulsated through me when he was first in the pods, and the way that he was just like, hey baby, it's me, Nikki D, da, 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 da. Oh, you sound beautiful, you sound gorgeous. Well,
Who I had the pleasure of speaking with today.
And it was so over the top that I don't think I've ever seen on this show a group of the entire women consensually say on the first day, that guy's a problem.
Trouble.
All the women were like, no, Nikki D.
They were like, no, but they were also like, he's smooth and a ladies' man. So he did pull off
no, he did it.
He pulled off the like veil of I'm a ladies' man.
Well, because also he was quick. He was very flirty, and he was very easy to talk to, and he's quick on his feet.
Because I think he took dating app vibes into a place where it should have been about vulnerability.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people came in there not trying to be like that. Some people came in there being like, I'm just going to try to be an open and honest person to truly find love.
Yeah, Nikki D's just like,
and
hey
he
baby, let me see
like,
that body. And you're like,
he came in just like, what's cracking? But he calls himself Henry Cavill, which was like, that's what he feel like he looks like, which is incredible.
Hold on a second, Evan. Well, you're not going to just brush past that one. So last year we had Chelsea say that she didn't say she looks like Megan Fox, by the way. She said people have told her she looks like Megan Fox. The entire internet went nuts. And her face was everywhere and everyone was going crazy. You know what I have not seen? I have not seen the internet losing their mind about the fact that Nikki D said, he didn't say people tell me I look like Henry Cavill. He said, I look like the less buff version of Henry Cavill. Why?
You know those memes?
Why are people... Why is there no... Why are we going to come for Chelsea's throat about this, and no one's talking about the fact that this man looks nothing like Henry Cavill, okay?
Yes.
They both have brown hair.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Like,
you know those memes where it says like, hey mom, can we get Henry Cavill? And then it says, no, we have Henry Cavill at home. And then it says Henry Cavill at home, and it shows a picture of him. Have you seen these before? Where it's like, it's like Temu Henry Cavill. You know what I mean? Where it shows like the cheap version knockoff.
But he doesn't even look like him at all.
No, I know. I'm saying it's just funny how it's like in his mind. But this is the thing that these people don't realize is like,
we can
you're
see
setting
you, right?
yourself up for failure, though. That's always the thing.
I know.
It's like when you talk a big game and you can't back it up, like all you're doing is the big reveal is going to be a bummer. And when they find out who you really are and it's not the thing that you sold on, it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like a weird... Maybe it's internet dating culture. Maybe it's this thing where it's like behind a screen, you kind of create this false reality. But I keep thinking to myself, like even her saying I look like Megan Fox, it's this weird thing of like, don't you know that you're going to have to prove this pretty soon?
Like and also on television. So like the world is going to be like, no, you don't look like this person. But him saying that he looks like Henry Cavill.
Mm-hmm.
he was hearing, and I'll stand by this. I don't care what anybody says. Okay.
Yeah.
He kept hearing Hannah talk about the fact that she was the cheerleader and dated the quarterback.
Right. So she was doing the same type of
So
thing.
she was presenting herself
They
in a
were
specific
equally
way.
corny together.
100%. And they were equally talking about their looks enough. Now, we had Hannah being like, at one point, when she ends it with him, we find out that she ended with him because she's like, you were talking about what is my bikini like and my body and da-da-da-da-da. And I am insecure about my body in the past. So it was a trigger for me. And I don't want to be with someone who cares about that. And that was then the reason where she said she started to spiral out about him. But I'm like, at the same time, and jumping forward, when the reveal happens and she clearly is not happy, it's like she's talking about not being judgmental, but at the same time is being so judgmental.
Who does this remind us of? Maybe I want to say last season. There was a girl who did the same type of thing where she's like, she was not into him at all, but she was kind of preaching like,
oh, Arena.
Yeah, like preaching not being physical at all. And
Arena
then sees
and
the guy and is like, ew. You know what I mean? Arena and Zach. That's what it was. It was like, it's not about this. It's not about this. It's not about this. And then sees it and be like, I can't do it.
It was giving a less intense version of that.
Yes.
And but I believe too, on the flip side, I think the only reason that Nikki D went so hard for Hannah is because he is living his football career fantasy and he wasn't the quarterback and it didn't end up working out. And he's hearing cheerleader who dated the quarterback with her cute little Southern accent. And he's like, I'm guessing she's an absolute fox. So that's why he's going for her hard. Okay. That I fully believe that. And I think also too, I think most of the women pulled out.
Yeah.
As much as they were like, yeah, he's got crazy BDE, he's obviously a player.
Right.
And so they're telling Hannah, they're like, Hannah, don't do it, don't do it. But Hannah...
It likes that, obviously.
And I normally don't say this. Hannah is so immature. I normally don't say this, but like Hannah is so immature.
Well, and later on, she leaves a list out of him.
Oh, well, maybe we'll talk.
No, but I'm saying like that was intentional. That was clearly manipulation and kind of like this way or whatever. So...
Hannah drives me bananas.
They're great for each other in the way that they're like both equally extremely immature and both extremely like full of shit is basically what I'm going to say. So it's like they do this thing where it's all about how awesome they are. And so they're awesoming off.
Yes.
And who can be hotter and more cool. But then you start to see her start to kind of melt with the pressure of the thought. So at first it's like, you know, I just want a guy who's like not into me physically for the first time in my life. And I was a cheerleader and I was this and I was that. And then it's like later on she starts getting insecure about stuff. And then she starts kind of going, well, I shouldn't have built myself. Like, it's just interesting how these people kind of have this weird, like, I'm 7 years old and trying to just talk about how cool I am initial approach to this.
Yes.
And then they start kind of having to go like, oh, I got to back it up now.
But to me, what was wild was watching her and him going in so much with each other, even though all the ladies were like, no, she's like, I think he's the love of my life. And they're all like, he's not the love of your life, Hannah. By the way, she's grabbing from the bowl a thing of grapes, eats one with her mouth and puts it back in the communal bowl.
Again, it's just...
I'm like, arrest.
Here's the thing, real quick, just a real quick caveat. They're both very unlikable. Like just general, like when they're on the screen, I have a pit in my stomach. And so it's just, they do shit that just like, it's just like,
body.
Whenever I see them, I both just go like, oh, like, I couldn't hang out with them. Like, they're insufferable to be around.
They both are not, I am not a fan of either of them. And, you know, I will, okay, one thing to her credit, because I'm about to go in hard in certain ways, is she did seem lovely to the women.
Sure.
Like when her and Brittany were with the whole Leo thing, she was always saying, oh, Leo or Brittany's an amazing girl. She was never talking poorly about Brittany in a competitive way. And also when Brittany, by the way, hopped in and said Leo's name and went, oh, she right away said she didn't mean to, you know,
right. But I forgot that she also started the whole series like Nick did by being like, hi, Nick Lachey. And, everyone, I'm here because, listen, I'm a baller. I graduated, got my dream job, making tons of money, killing it. And then I quit this job to find love. Like, that's how humble and that's how real I am about this process. And it's like, so she started with the same kind of energy with him being like, he was all, I'm NFL this, NFL. And she's like, I'm an amazing medical sales, captain.
True, and I'm making tons of cash.
I'm killing it. So I decided to quit.
Which, by the way, I was sitting there going, I was like, Brittany, you're 26. If you found your dream job and were making good money, like you probably should just like keep dating while you do your job.
And I'm not trying to be a hater, but I've never met anyone who said like my dream in life was to be in medical sales. It's kind of a weird thing.
Maybe that's some people.
I never met a 9-year-old that was like, one day I'll be a medical sales rep.
That's some people were very passionate about that.
Sure,
but for her to be like, I'm making tons of money in my dream job and I quit it. I was like, well, that's a wild choice to be 26, making a ton of money and doing your dream job and just quit it.
I'm smelling a little bullshit here.
I'm like, I get being a little older and being like, I've tried through working, but I'm like, this is still really young.
26, quit your dream job to go on a reality. It sounds like you're more interested in the reality TV aspect of it, maybe.
A little bit what it feels like to me. But she then, what was wild to me is that she was all in on Nick, and then hearing these things from the ladies, but then just showed up in the pod one day and was like, why are you even here? Because she got upset about the body thing, which triggered her.
Clearly the trigger.
Listen, Nikki was being in the pods where he was like constantly being like, ooh, like what does that body do? I can't wait to touch. He was very sexual in the pods, ironically, even though later, he doesn't want to talk about sex because of his brand.
Oh my gosh, epic.
Doesn't want to talk about sex because of his brand? Like, what are you, a corporation?
And not only that, but you're saying it on camera. You're on camera with a microphone going,
saying, I don't want to
by the way, let's not talk about sex because of my brand. So it's like, you understand that you've kind of like the Wizard of Oz has been shown. Like you like you do it when there's no mics at 2 a.m. in the morning. By the way, let's not talk about this.
Don't just be like,
you don't talk about it at the time when you're with everyone, also, saying we didn't do it right.
Also, for the love of God,
wink.
please never on camera ever again say my brand. But anyway, like the fact though that Brittany, that in that conversation, like, she was triggered by what he was talking about in the pods. Oh, sorry. Hannah was triggered about what he was talking about in the pods, and she turned on a dime.
Yeah, that was clearly
in that
her
pod,
trigger.
She goes, why are you even here? Why are you even here? Why are you still single? And that's a little clue, and I think of how the rest of their relationship is going to go. And I think we observe that a few times where like we're all good and dandy in one little thing with that trigger, and she is shut the hell down. She ends it with him to the point that we think he's getting sent home. Then she changes her mind the next day, brings him back, and then eventually through the whole Leo of it all, these two end up sticking through it. Even though he at one point is just like, so financially, like, what are your thoughts on that? And we kind of get the hint that he might be a little bit of an Izzy character.
Yeah, it's not going as well as he thought.
I feel as if we're going to go back to his home in DC, and we're going to find out that there are some bills stacking up that maybe Hannah's going to have to pay for with her dream job.
He's going to go into the apartment and like grab all the mail that's all like debt collectors and just like throw it into a room real quick and be like, it's nothing. It was nothing.
So Hannah, you said you quit your job.
He's like, how quickly can you get your job back?
You said this something about there's a lot of money and it's your dream job. So quick question. But he does end up proposing to her and they go through with it. And at the reveal,
it's a similar vibe.
My whole body is quaking. Now, I didn't know how Nick was going to be during the reveal. Brittany comes out, and beforehand in ITMs, she's like, listen, worst case scenario, he's scrawny and
he's
small.
Little. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened.
And she walked out, and she was taller than him. Now, at one point, I'm like, I don't know what math was math in here, but she was like talking about that he couldn't be a certain height. And she's like, yeah, like I'm this height. And I'm like, girl, you have like 6-inch heels on.
Right.
So. Yeah.
And there's something so like wild to me that when you see people, they physically can't, like they're like,
repelled.
They literally are like pulling away. And she would just do this thing where she was like, she kind of like pull away and would just be like,
he's like, you can look at me. And she's like, no.
She literally was like looking into the sky.
When she walked out at first, she looked in other directions.
Like going,
and she was like, no, and she goes, it's like, where is he? This is what I think, you guys. So yes, she's talked about her insecurities and been super, super vulnerable about those. But at the same time, I believe that, yes, we talked about the Leo thing where it's like she said yes to Nikki D because he was the first one to say I love you to her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I believe one of the big reasons she chose Nikki D is because all the girls were talking about how much of like how big of BDE he had, and she kept saying, I know he's never struggled getting women. He gets women easily. He's a football player. He has swag and he's got game. So she was expecting that the guy on the other side of the pod was this massive man who looked like Henry Cavill, and that's why she chose him.
Yes.
Like, I think she chose him 100% for physical reasons.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of like incredible chemistry. It
Like,
seemed
they had fun together because they both are good conversationalists.
to each other.
Yeah, but they both are fun conversationalists.
Sure.
Like, they can go back and forth. But I think the only reason she chose him
I
is
agree.
because she was like, he's Mr. Suave, and I bet he's
It's
an
the Megan
absolute
Foxism
10.
again when he's like,
Yes.
so she kind of doesn't really look like Megan Fox, but I'm sure it was the same kind of reaction.
So she thought he was just going to be an absolute
Yeah.
10, and he came out and he was much smaller than she thought, and he doesn't look like Henry Cavill. And their interaction was so painful. I have to say, as much as I'm not a Nikki D fan, shout out to him. He handled it really well, and he was very sweet to her and
Yes.
very like, you're beautiful, you're stunning. He didn't push himself on her too much.
Yeah.
He gave her space. He kind of was making jokes about her height, like
Yeah.
compared to his, where he's like, I think I'm smaller than you.
No,
Like,
he handled it very well.
He handled that part very, very well, and I have to shout him out for that. And in that moment,
she was crawling out of her skin. It was
so
literally
much
like,
so crawling out of her skin that when they left for the first time ever, she did not turn and look back at him.
She just walked straight out.
He turned to look. I don't think we've ever seen someone not turn around. She just humphed out in just annoyance, and the door closed behind her. She never turned back around and looked at him.
I am
wild.
secure enough to tell you how insecure I am. I could not recover.
You couldn't handle that.
From 95% of these reactions. If I didn't sense an immediate, like, thank God,
Yeah.
I'm gone. I can't recover. From half of these reactions are like, thank you. Like, every time they say you're beautiful, they go, thank you. They don't go, you're handsome too. Like, I would be like, cool, we're done. Because I'm so rattled. But the fact that some of these guys can just kind of keep coming back after, like, what clearly is somewhat of a disappointment in their eyes, gotta hand it to them. I mean, it's. I couldn't handle it.
I know I would be.
If I was into Hannah
I would be a mess.
and she gave me that look, I am like, it was really nice meeting you.
Oh yeah, I'm out.
I could not handle
No,
that.
I'm like, I feel horrible right now.
Oh my God.
I'd also be like, no, I'm not going to let myself be looked at like that. Like, I'm a person. Like,
Yeah.
you can't look at me like that.
Yeah.
Like, I would be so
If I saw
upset.
disappointment, I'm running.
So they end up going to Mexico.
Yeah.
I'm thinking she's going to be like, don't look in my direction.
Right.
But at this point, she has now seemed to have grown accustomed to his energy. But I also don't know, because I think she's forcing herself. Because even though, yes, we find out that they do hook up and they are being playful with each other, I feel as if she's using every moment. It's the Jimmy and Chelsea thing.
This is very Jimmy and Chelsea.
Except she's the Jimmy and he's the Chelsea, because he said I look like Henry Cavill, and she's Jimmy.
But yeah.
Because she, in my opinion, was doing a lot of things where it's like, remember how Jimmy would then be like flirty and playful with Chelsea in Mexico, but then would randomly pull back hard? And I feel like that's what Hannah's doing. Hannah will be like flirty with him and kind of coming on to him, and they'll like be like hooking up or whatever. But then one little thing, and she's like, there's my out. There's my out. So she'll then yank back
See, it's
really, really
interesting.
hard.
I kind of felt like he was doing shit like, I can't wait to meet all these beautiful girls.
Well, there's that too.
You know what I mean?
There's
So
that
he
too.
would kind of make her feel insecure with the way that he would make these comments. Then he had the duck situation, you know, where he hops over, he goes in the duck with the older lady, and is kind of hitting on her, and she's hitting on, and then the comments go back.
Not hitting, but
But I'm just saying, like, the energy was like he wanted her to feel insecure, and that she didn't have him locked. And she kind of did as well. So they felt like they were both playing
they were doing
this,
a pull. Yeah, no,
this
you're
game
right.
of like,
A tug of war.
I'm
a little
gonna
bit.
keep you on your toes, same. So then everyone was kind of waiting for moments to pull away and go back and forth.
But
and
I think in that tug of war, I do think he's into her. And I do not think she's into him. So I do think he's attracted to her, but then he's thrown out these kind of shitty comments to try to make her like yank her back in.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's into him, but I think him kind of doing the kind of shitty comments is making her kind of go in. But then all of a sudden she'll pull back and be like, no.
It's some absolute shaky foundation.
It is
vibes.
a terrible foundation to be starting off on. But yes, like you said, I did want to make note at one point in the conversation when Nikki D was like, I just can't wait to see all these beautiful other women out of nowhere.
Yeah, and she's like, what? And he's like, not like that. It's like,
and then he goes, by the way, you don't have any of that like fake shit in your lips, do you?
That's what I'm saying. So he was doing the thing, which is like,
so listen up. I've seen online, okay, I feel like I was looking on Twitter a little bit after, and I feel like I was seeing a lot of people being like, we can't stand Hannah and poor Nikki D.
Really?
Okay? Here's the thing, all right?
What?
Hannah is a hot mess. Sorry, Hannah, but is a hot mess during this season, and I am not a fan. But I am also not a fan of Nikki D.
No.
I'm a little bit like...
I equally don't like either of them.
I think what you all are seeing is that because of her behavior, you're like, aw, Nikki D. And you're like, no. Remember him in the pods? Him in the pods, he was being Mr. Suave, and then all of a sudden he stopped being that way. And I'm like, do we get a little glimpse of who he might actually be?
Yes.
Towards the end of his and Hannah's relationship, I'm like, okay, I see you in there. And I was starting to warm up a little bit. But then we get back to Mexico, and he's throwing out that shit like, do you have that fake shit in your lips?
Right.
Good. And he's like, yeah, you better not.
Exactly.
But then he kind of pulled back a little bit because he realized his brand.
Yeah.
And he was like, I mean, I just think you're beautiful. I think women are beautiful naturally. And I'm like, get out of here, dude. And then with the whole duck situation, do I think what Nikki D did was inherently wrong? No. I don't think him going over and calling, and when the lady was like, I got it after you, and he goes, come on over here. I don't think what he did was wrong, but I get why Hannah would be annoyed.
It was just in bad taste. That was my thing. It was like, this is the first day you guys have been together.
Yes.
Day one. And you're already like kind of being flirtatious with this other woman. Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but day one, it was just kind of weird. But she was being a sad sack. So she was being all like pouty and being like, don't do that. You're going to give me the ick if you do that. So she was like,
no, they're making
her,
each other.
Duh.
They're making each other like they're bringing the toxic out.
They're toxic with each other.
They're bringing the toxic out because yes, like you said, she was just being like a bummer.
Right.
A big bummer and being like, I'm gonna get the ick if you do that. And it's like let the man bounce on his fucking duck.
Yeah.
Let him walk that fucking duck.
Yeah.
But I get when someone does hear you're about to get the ick and on the first day goes and does it and then has someone come over, and then my big thing, which would have bugged me, is when that woman points at her and she goes, no,
right.
Stop being jealous. You're jealous. Don't be jealous. And he then starts laughing and keeps doing it with her. I would hope my brand new partner, I'm not saying like push the woman off
like, oh no, she's not jealous. She's a queen.
Don't push the woman off the duck and be like, I'm not doing the race with you.
I would have taken the duck and just bam.
Like if he just could have looked and laughed and be like, oh no, that's my girl. It's all good.
But he like continued to flirt with her and was like, it was he was being toxic.
And then later, when he was talking to the guys, he was like, that woman was 60, but she was bad.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
so he thought she was hot. And so there was this like...
And then we see him in previews getting a little handsy with one of the other women from the pod. And trust me, I don't trust him.
Yeah.
And just because people are feeling sad for him because Hannah is being rude to him and being a bummer, but also being rude to him, doesn't mean that he's like this great guy. I don't trust that guy as far as I could throw him.
Yeah,
like that is
honest,
the guy.
They feel like same vibes. Same.
He's just he gives me the deep vibes of like, I don't want him going out to a bar. Because if he gets an opportunity, once he gets famous, I don't think so.
No.
But in all of this, we do hear about the fact that after he walked that fucking duck. Sorry, it's a RuPaul. It's an Anitra reference.
Okay. I'm
it's
like, what is this?
You walk that fucking duck. It's a drag queen reference. But after he did that, she left out a note.
Yeah.
That was a
like
list
pros
of
and cons,
bullet points
cons
of all cons. mature question mark, delusional question mark, self-confident versus arrogant question mark.
Right.
And again, Evan, what you said before, if I would see someone write that about me, I would have been out that door in 2 seconds.
I mean, it's crazy.
Not even out of anger, but my pride. Like, I would have been so hurt. And
This is
like,
day
I don't
one.
even know you. Like, yes, we're engaged, but I don't know who you are. And you're writing a list. And for her to be manipulative enough to just leave that out is shady as hell.
So shady.
Like, so shady.
I think she said yes to Nick because, like you said, he said, I love you, but also because she didn't want to leave empty-handed.
I agree. I think she wants to.
she felt like she'd be a failure if she left the show without somebody.
I think she also wants to get famous. Like, she gives that to me.
I completely agree.
As does Nikki D.
Yeah. 100%. So they're kind of made for each other in this way. And to be honest with you, I don't hate them for each other because it's kind of like they're kind of gross.
I hate them for each.
No,
I think
I'm saying in the way of like I don't see them with anybody else on the show.
No.
So like two toxic people that are manipulating each other, gaslighting each other, being moody and weird and setting each other up for failure. That's what they're doing. He's also doing this thing where he's like, yeah, don't tell anyone about the sex we had because my brand. And then so it's like there's
and then they're at the pool party. He's like, go ahead and tell him because he then is
he
feeling
knows that like I want all the girls to think I'm hot. So he does
because
that.
He's then
'cause he
hearing
even
all
said
the
that
women
earlier
talk
to her.
about.
He goes,
yes.
So did all the ladies think I was the hot shit? And she's like, what? Not really.
No.
He's like, oh, okay. Like,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't.
it's the same.
I'm not feeling him gaslighting her, but I do agree with everything else that you were saying,
The vibes.
I think that I don't know. I was seeing like certain people online like loving on Nikki D, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
Wow.
Like, she is being the worst
Yeah.
in certain ways, but at the same time, I feel like some of you all are missing a couple moments where he's having these lines that are not cool.
Yes.
That would really, it's giving me Jimmy and Chelsea, but
Big
now
time.
I'm switching it. Where when we were watching it last season and people were like, Chelsea's being the worst. And we were like, but Jimmy's like doing this shit too. I feel like the same thing. Sames with Hannah and Nikki D. They're both doing shitty stuff to each other. And I'll stand by it.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand by it. All right. Should we go on to the next couple?
Yes.
Let's go on. These were our two big ones.
Two of the big ones. Now we'll
These
work
were
through
the
the
two
rest.
big ones. And now, family, you're going to get some more quick notes
hits.
from the rest of these couples. Sorry, rest of the couples, but those were kind of, I feel like, the four main characters of these episodes. So let's move on to one of our couples who seems to be doing well. One of like the main doing well couples, and that is Ashley and Tyler. First of all, right out the gate, I love Ashley.
Yes.
She's got great energy. She is very warm and very like low key, and I love her energy.
Yes.
I feel like she was one of the few individuals in the pods who, though they had a fast moving relationship, she was not like foot on the gas in an unrealistic way. She was like kind of taking her time. And then when she finally at the end, right before he proposed to her, she read him a letter that was like super vulnerable and put it all out there. But you could tell she was like observing and listening. And then when Tyler first comes in and she meets him, he is like the definition of golden retriever energy out the gate. He is like the king of positivity.
Yes.
He's running into the pods right after their conversation being like, I'm marrying this woman.
Yeah.
I'm in love. And he was with Ashley, at least from what we saw, hard from day one. She liked him right away because he seemed nervous at the very beginning.
Yes.
And he was a little like kind of trying to find his footing and saying some awkward things. And he was like, sorry, I'm nervous. And she's like, I like that, which I resonate with.
Especially because she was just probably meeting with Dorcas. And he's like, what's up, baby girl? And he's like, okay, I don't like that energy.
She's like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And then Tyler came in. I resonate with that because I feel the same way. I like when someone's a little,
like,
not like-
it feels like I don't do this a lot energy.
yeah, it doesn't feel like here are my rehearsed lines.
Yes.
And it also felt like an organic nervousness, not like a who me nervousness,
Yes.
right? So I mean, like I said, I love her. She's in marketing. She also like works for a nonprofit. She just seems awesome.
But once she fell hard. That was
fell
my
hard.
thing. It was kind of like once she gave herself over to the process with him, then it was tons of tears, very in love, very intense, and my thing about him is that I did like the golden retriever energy. I did like the fact that he seems like a good guy, all that. I will say though, from early on, I felt a little bit like he was selling a little bit of an image of what she would want.
Yes.
So like,
yes.
I really want this strong man who takes control, who protects me, who's there for me, a man of faith.
Yeah.
Then he all of a sudden is like,
he's praying in there,
praying with her constantly, where he never prayed with her before. So the second she says, I'm a man of faith, he's like, oh, let me pray for you right now. And then he's also saying stuff like, you know, I got your back forever, you know, and so
but then he's also like noting like, hey, this isn't 1948. Like, I'm not about gender roles.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not expecting a woman.
So
and like she said, you always have the right answers.
So there's a little bit of like, I couldn't tell if he was being honest there in the middle towards the end, or if it was like, I'm giving you what you want to hear. Yeah, I'm this perfect man for you.
Yes. I felt like I agree with you because I felt like everything we saw as viewers was him just being lovely.
Yes.
Like just seeming like the loveliest guy. It seems like all the men love him. And he was faithful in his feelings for her since day one, like out the gate. But I agree with you. So let's just, you know, they get engaged. And when they meet up with each other for the first time, they're a little nervous, but then they're one of the few couples that I felt
I was a little nervous at first. I thought she wasn't that into him physically. She seemed a little like,
I think she was nervous, but then when those doors closed and she started jumping up and down and screaming,
so I was like, whoa, okay,
my
I
heart
read that wrong.
soared. And then we saw her later in interviews being like, I didn't care what he looked like, but my God,
it works
he's
out great.
gorgeous. Like, so they're both physically very into each other. And he even made a comment where he's like, my friends aren't going to believe that I didn't see you before. So like, it seems like she's very much his type physically, and he's very much her type physically.
Yes.
But
there were two moments in Mexico. Couple moments in Mexico that made me start to feel just like the veil was cracking a little bit with him.
Okay.
The first one was when she says, it's so nice to be with you and connecting on a soul level. Because before that, it was like, she's talking about sex, and she's like, it's nice to give my body over to you almost because we love each other and there's this connection.
Well, because she had talked about how she'd been abstinent.
Right. Because it came,
but
it came from a place of like, I kind of was hooking up with guys here and there and blah, blah, blah. And I was giving myself over to people that didn't love me and da, da, da. And it was funny because he didn't meet it with, oh, thank you, that means a lot. He met it with me too. You know, for me, when I was single, it was insane. It was it was a new girl every night energy. And so, but you know, it's really nice to kind of have the soul connection when it comes to sex.
Well, no, he was saying, I felt like he was like, me too. And then he said, he didn't mention, I don't feel like he mentioned necessarily
he didn't say that, but he just kind of made it sound like, oh yeah, me too. When I was single, I felt that way too.
But then he talked about the soul connection kind of echoed her. I feel like there is a lot of echoing
There's
going on.
There's a lot of echoing.
So I'm wondering, I'm like, are you guys just really on the same page and completely in sync with your way of thoughts? Or is he hearing what you like and then echoing what you like?
I'm feeling like there's a lot of echoing. I'm feeling like he just meets her wherever she's at to make sure that she feels good about him. Because then we get to that weird part during the dinner.
I want to talk about that. Yes. So in my eyes, I've been watching the two of them together this entire time and been like, man, I mean, I love her. He seems wonderful, and they're just working.
Seems like they're the most automatic couple here.
You know what I mean? Like, it's doing great. And there was a comment to me in the pods that he made, and I don't remember it exactly, and I believe it was him, but Lord knows it was towards the beginning, so, you know, maybe I'm misquoting. But he said something about, like, it's good for him to be in here because out in the real world, it's very like sees a woman and it's all about the attraction physically. But then once the attraction physically is there, he dips or something like that.
In my mind, he was alluding to a lot of player vibes in the past.
Yes. Yeah, I don't even know about player, but like maybe an unhealthy relationship dynamic. But then when everything's going great and then they're in Mexico and they're doing their cooking date, he's like, I'm so glad I met you at this point in your life. And he's like, and man, I'm glad you met me now because you would not have liked me before. And he said, you know, there might be a lot of people that you hear saying like, oh, he was mean.
Yeah, I was like, what?
And then it starts like defending like, oh, I'm here for you regardless. He's like, you know, which I could imagine some might say about you. And she goes, no, you would just hear positive things. No one would say
I was mean.
And then he said this, and this was a moment where I was like, we're just kind of out of nowhere. He's like, well, you know, who knows who's going to come out of the woodworks from the past.
Yeah. About being mean too. So it was like a weird
Yeah, I don't know about, and that was random. But
so
as
weird.
soon as he said, I was like, oh God, please just let it be that he is a very sensitive soul.
Sure.
And is like emotionally preparing for knowing he's on television.
Yeah.
And sometimes people come back
Who
and
knows?
say, hey, in high school he was rude, like whatever, and have like old stories. I'm hoping that's what it is that he's just sensitive and being hyper aware of it. But for him to say that in the pods and then for him to randomly kind of out of nowhere throw in, by the way, just FYI, who knows who's going to come out of the woodworks? I was
what?
like, oh no, what's going to come out?
I would never think to say that unless there's something that's lying in wait.
That's the thing. I was thinking about myself because then I was kind of like ruminating on it because I'm like, are you being like overly hyper aware of this? I was thinking about it and I'm like, you know what? If I was on this show, I don't see myself at any point letting the other person know, like, just FYI, if something comes out of the woodworks,
shit that comes out about me. It's like,
unless there's something that I'm worried about.
But then I felt like, ooh, don't do that. Because then she kind of echoed him and goes, well, just so you know, it doesn't matter if my mom says something, if my best friend says something, no one can change the way I feel about you. So if my mom meets you and goes, I don't like him, it's not changing the way I feel. And I was kind of like, that's kind of a weird response to that. Is that just maybe a defense mechanism because it kind of freaked you out?
No, I feel like that's her. Well, she probably like was thinking, I mean, they're having just like a standard conversation about like what it's going to look like on the outside. Okay. And I feel like that was her being like a loving partner, being like, babe, I'm not leaving regardless of what happens. Okay,
maybe I was reading too much.
I mean, maybe I've got the wrong take, but I get the vibe from Ashley that she has a very good like radar and like she seems, like I said, she has this like calming energy that I feel like she's kind of observing a lot. Yeah. That if there starts to be things that she'll pull back, but I felt like from her end it was just kind of like, hey, I just want to let you know. I just would have loved her to have been like, what could come out of the woodwork? Yeah, for sure. You know what I mean? Yeah, like dig. Like that's something Alex would have done. Alex would be like, well, what the hell is going to come out of the woodwork? Yeah, totally. You know what I mean? But like, so what do you mean? So what do you mean? What are you hiding? Yeah, and then he would have been like, I don't know. Just one time I was mean to a guy in 6th grade. I don't know. You know what I mean? It was like, explain. That's a weird thing. That's my question mark with their relationship. Yeah, agreed. And I'm wondering, because the rest of the episode, when they have the pool party, their relationship dynamic goes great. Everyone's like, you guys are so cute together. He's like, I'm getting married, everybody. Right. They seem very much in love. But then when we saw the preview, we saw Ashley talking to Alex, and she said something like, when you come into this process, you don't think that you're going to hear that your guy maybe, and they cut her off. So I'm wondering, I'm like, is this an editing trick? Right. And they're talking about Alex and Tim? Sure. Or like another couple, or does she start hearing some stuff from Tyler's past, going on. Yes. Something comes out of the woodworks. Yeah, exactly. And, we'll see. But I mean, that's me. Like, I was like hyper analyzing trying to find something almost. It stood out to me just because I felt it was very random. It was random. And it didn't seem like the other energy we had gotten from him. Up against the backdrop of everything that had gone down, it was random. So that's why it stood out to me. But other than that, they look like there are solid couple. Agreed. And I do, at least from what we've seen so far, I do really like both of them a lot. Me too. They seem like lovely people. Another couple that seems like they are cruising at this moment are Ramses and Marissa. Yeah. So we have Marissa. She was in a love triangle for a moment with Ramses and Bowden. Bowden, we don't need to get into that just for the sake of time, but he was Marissa, like a nice guy. Seemed like a really sweet guy. Both of them are military, or were military. I think what was the falling out with them was that she kept saying we're so the same. Yeah, and I think there was a little bit of this like we're kind of the besties. Well, and they had very bestie energy. Yeah, but like maybe we don't have the romantic connection, and she had the sexual vibes with Ramses. You know what I mean? And I noted too, because I felt like I was like, oh, she really is connecting with Bowden. Yeah. But Hannah made a comment at the pool party in ITM. She's like, I finally get to meet Ramses. Marissa's my girl, and she never shut up about him. Right. So I think maybe it was more of a raw thing going on. It was more like maybe there was the three-way situation, but in general, she was like really like locked in with Ramses more than it seemed. But yeah, she was in the military. She's currently in law school. And then Ramses, who was rocking leather pants in the pod, which immediately the man had my respect. I was like, he was style first. Not only is this man showing up in full style.
Steven's in gym shorts and no shoes, and Ramses is in leather pants.
He's in leather pants under the hot TV lights. Okay, it is hot in there. I can guarantee you, because they can't have a certain air crank, and they've got the hot lights on you. And he is committed to the leather pant. He is committed to the fashion.
Big time.
But Ramses, you know, he talks about how he was married before. And his story is similar to ours. And actually, we're still married, but a lot of our friends' stories where when he first got married, he was from a super conservative religious family. And then he got married young, and his partner was part of that. And that was really what connected them, is this conservative religion. And then they kind of went in different directions, and he pulled away from the faith and she stayed in. I was like, oh, he's got a story that a lot of our friends do, like growing up in a super conservative religious home. So, you know, right, he got me there right away, where I was like, I see you, Ramses. I see you. But, you know, he's very sweet, very handsome.
Yeah, he talked about being like okay with being a stay-at-home dad. He talked about like deconstructing, you know, the classic masculine roles and stuff. So he's a very open, sweet guy.
And we hear later from Marissa that he's the type of guy that she has wanted to be with. Yeah. But she hasn't been, because she's judged men like him in the past, and she's kind of gone. She comes from
military, where she was really into like strong, like military
hyper masculine,
dudes.
like type of men. But she ends up falling for Ramses. Honestly, ends up falling for him when he tells her, I forget what are the three. Oh, that he's a Cancer, Leo. That's what did it for her. She was like almost kind of in between, and then she's like, what are your big three? He's like Cancer, Leo, and she lost it, and she like ran into the women's area, and she's like, he is a Cancer, Leo, ladies, trust me, this is good. And I'm like, I know my astrology, but I don't know it well enough to be like, what is that? People, let me know in the comments, what does this big three mean?
Or also just to be like, that's the thing that makes it lock in.
Yeah, that's she was heavy. Like, so she
not
was
one
like,
not one of the options, like the thing that locked it in.
But she liked the way she ended it with Boden. It was
really sweet. It was like two friends. It was just like,
we have to talk. I think I have more feelings for Ramses. And Boden's like, okay.
I totally understand. Nice meeting you.
Bye.
It was very like, oh, okay, that went about as good as it could have gone.
And there's a preview for later in the season where they meet at a party, her and Boden, and it looks like, I feel like they're leading us on with that.
It looked like nothing.
That they're like having a moment, and she's like, would you have proposed to me? And he's like, yeah. I don't think that anything is gonna come of that personally. No, I don't think. But we do know that Ramses was feeling sensitive about her and Boden being together, so maybe that is going to be a trigger for him, and that might start an argument. But I think that they're kind of doing a little bit of a, you know, teasing us, and that's not going to be the case. But he does end up proposing to her with like a letter that made me just want to absolutely melt. You know, I can't handle the poetry, but Ramses, you can tell like he is truly an artiste. Yeah. He said, I want to tuck you into the spaces between my heartbeat. I literally died. I'm like, write it.
Arms wide open. I feel like he was going to bust the guitar out and sing those lyrics.
I loved it, though. That was romantic.
It was very romantic.
It sounds like something in one of the books.
I was going to say, you've been reading a lot of fantasy books. It sounds like that. It's exactly what that is.
Oh, it's something I would tattoo on me. You know what I mean? But he ends up proposing to her, and in their reveal, both of them are like
so excited.
Holy shit, you're hot.
It was by far the most like, oh, they're into each other.
They were like, oh my God, you're hot. She loves his style. They're giddy. They're cute. They're so all over each other that he forgets to literally give her the ring. Yeah. And they're like walking out, and he's like, oh shit. And she like runs into his spot with him. They're like, they were over the moon for each other.
And that physical connection continues into Mexico in a big way.
We find out that when they get to Mexico, they had sex before dinner time on the first day.
So the chemistry was off the rails.
I don't think we've seen that.
We've never seen that. Someone hooking up that quickly.
And they look like they are having the best time together ever.
This is maybe one of the horniest casts ever, because in the past, I felt like when they got to the first cocktail kind of hangout, like one of the couples would have had sex.
Yes.
And the rest were like, we're working on it.
Yes.
But like all of them except one, I think, had it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it was except Taylor and Garrett. Everyone had sex at that point.
Right. So it was really interesting to see like, but Ramses and Marissa were like the, you know, king and queen of the fucking, because they were like, came in and she's like, it's been nonstop, no sleep last night. It's been epic. Woo!
They have crazy chemistry.
Crazy sexual
They
chemistry.
also have crazy relational chemistry.
Yeah.
They seem like they have so much fun together, even after they had no hitches during the pool party of meeting anybody. In fact, they went back and they're like, let's gossip about everybody, which is very couple energy.
To be gossiping right away is very couple energy. Yeah.
But
Okay.
I think that they are not going to work out.
Why is that?
Let me tell you why. I've broken this down a little bit. There were a few things. One comment that keeps being made and was made in the pods is like, is her energy too much for him? And he then said in front of the guys, he was like, her energy hasn't even been too much for me. I think that's going to be a little bit of a thing that might, like, once they're back home and they're working in the real world.
Once the like sexcapades and like honeymoon
when
dies
it's day
down
to
a
day.
little bit.
I'm like, I love her energy, but he's very much like, seems like a very low key guy, and he has brought that up. The other thing that I think is going to be an issue is she mentioned in the pods and to him that she was like, I have dated politics. It doesn't matter to me like who I'm in a relationship with. She said, I have dated a guy for 3 years who was a Trump supporter. And he was like, oh shit. And he literally said like, oh shit. Okay. By the way, so much conversation about Trump in these episodes. I'm like very triggered with the election coming up. But yeah, she said that she dated this Trump supporter for 3 years and he said, oh shit. She herself, I believe with Bowden, was like, she's progressive, but that she's fine with this. I looked, first of all, Ramses's reaction wasn't like, oh, same. He was like, oh, shit. And I looked at what Ramses does for work. And Ramses works for a justice reform nonprofit.
Oh, wow.
And which means that he has talked about that he's progressive.
Very, yeah.
His work is involved in, that is deep in politics. And so I believe that politics will end up becoming an issue.
Interesting. Yeah. Like
I think because it's like when this is what you do for work, and then she was like, military, and, I don't know then what her group of friends is like. And if he is then in this with his work, with justice reform, I don't know. I smell it going awry from a political perspective. That's my guess.
Very good insight, I think. And I think you're right, because she is also someone who's very talkative and lots of energy. So it's not like she's going to kind of keep it to herself or have it be kind of a sheepish thing they talk about, but they don't really get into. She is going to be like, here's how I feel, bam. And he's going to have to kind of confront, like, how do I deal
And like
with
I said, even though I think she in conversation had said that she was progressive with Bowden, it's still, I get the vibe that, and maybe I'm reading into it.
He feels really strongly.
I get the vibe that Ramses is going to be like, again, with what he does with work, that he is going to be like,
this is not okay with me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's my guess.
I didn't even think about that.
So I think that they have a lot of sexual chemistry, but I think we take it back home into the real
Big
world.
honeymoon energy right now.
And I think it's going to get, we're going to get problems.
Agreed.
That's my guess. Okay. Next couple that seems to be doing very well at the moment is Garrett and Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
The two scientists, everybody.
Yeah. They're like just so smart that it's one of those things where they just like,
I didn't
there's
understand
no
half
games
of what
being,
they were.
but there's also just no games. I think that's the big thing is like,
no, they're both very analytical.
They're so analytical that they're not playing games. And so when you have no games, it's like there's not much to hide. They seem to be very forthcoming about how they feel.
They both have science tattoos.
Exactly. By the time they like get engaged and they're like in Mexico, I just feel like they've discussed all important topics to them. They've done the pros and cons. They've done the science. They've done the analytics, and they've been like, this is a great decision. They're not in the middle of like who's hot, who's not, what's your vibe. It's just like we've broken it down.
He's a physicist, and she is in energy policy.
Yeah.
Okay. Science tattoos.
Yeah, both very
and they were
smart people.
explaining the tattoos, and then at one point he said something and she goes, oh, such and such is theory, and I'm like, oh my god.
No,
I'm like, I can't follow this conversation at all because you guys are both so much smarter than me. And I have to tell you, family, my absolute crush of the season, I am obsessed with Taylor. She is my crush. If I was in the pods, I would have chosen Taylor. obviously, when you meet her, she's shockingly beautiful. That woman, can you imagine her in her science community?
No, I was thinking about that. All the guys are like, whoa, because I don't think there's probably a ton of like, she's probably, very singled out there. And I would imagine there's a lot of like nerdy dudes hanging around being like, dude, Taylor.
This woman is just like Lois Lane. Like she is like the main character in every movie that is like the stunning scientist.
She gets a lot of letters from her coworkers being like, can I please take you out on a date?
She is like so beautiful and so obviously wildly smart. But on top of this, you tell me, Evan, how is one so beautiful, so smart, and then also so genuinely funny? Like she makes me laugh a lot. Her sense of humor,
dry sense of humor, funny,
is so funny. When he was like, will you be my girlfriend? She's like, well, you're going to ask me to be your girlfriend? He goes, will you be my girlfriend? She's like, I'll let you know in 2 days.
Yeah.
And then when they were in Mexico with the mouth tape, which I thought of you, and she was like putting it on him and she goes, shh.
Yeah.
She was doing the whole
very
just
funny.
Like, this won't hurt one bit. And
she's very charming.
She is so charming.
Like effortlessly charming.
But also like very quick-witted. And I am like,
very mellow too.
I am in love with her. Like would marry her in the pods tomorrow.
Yeah, no, she's got something special for sure.
And I'll just tell you what, Garrett, you scored like you would not believe. And if you fuck this up, my guy, like you're out of your damn mind. Like this man scored beyond his belief.
Well, we saw previews. It's kind of scary.
Well, we'll talk about that. But to me, Taylor is like giving someone who ends up dating an A-list celebrity, and she marries a guy who is like a super huge A-list actor, and she is like the beautiful, smart, intelligent one, and they combine together. They use his money and her intellect to create this like gorgeous nonprofit that the world needs. So like a revolve around energy policy, like that is what is giving. That is big Taylor time to me, and I'm sorry, Garrett, you don't deserve her.
Yeah, let's get a little bit of that energy.
I'm gonna be real. Yeah. Like, sorry, but in my opinion, I'm like, Taylor is just at a different level that like I can't wrap my brain around. And I believe she deserves the world. And Garrett is not giving me the world. I get why she's connecting with Garrett. Sure.
They seem the most compatible out of everyone there.
They have all the same interests. They seem to communicate well together so far. Like you said, there's not like a lot of bullshit between the two. They just kind of say it how it is. And then when they were in Mexico, it seemed like physically they were connecting really well as well. But there was a moment that I'm kind of stuck on that involves them in the pods that I couldn't quite, that I'm stuck on. And it's when she was bringing up her mom. And she's like, I'm not going to tell you her first name because I think that's going to reveal my ethnicity.
Right.
And I want to do this Love is Blind. And he then makes a comment. He says, I've only dated white girls. And immediately after he says that, he right away he gets really weird in his energy. And he goes, you're just so calculated. And I just wonder, like, what are you hiding? And she received it in a way where she was like, it's hard to hear, but good feedback. I'm not being calculated. But his response to that, I couldn't get past it because I feel like the way that he switched and was like, you're so super calculated and what are you hiding? Like calling her out. And then he says like that she's been, you've used a carefully curated way to bring up your ethnicity. And I was like, Garrett, that is not your decision to make.
Right.
Like that is not for you to discuss that you believe that she's calculated in the way that she's bringing up her
Also,
ethnicity.
the whole point of the show is not to talk about physical. So it's just like, that's actually the build of the show. And they even talk about it in other couples being like, I know, like, we're not talking about this.
But she has a boundary of which she's like, hey, I want to do this certain way. And then for you to like call her calculated and then to say, what are you hiding from me?
While talking about that. That was weird.
I couldn't get past it. And then it continued on in conversation where in ITMs, he's like, not a woman that I would have approached. at the bar.
Yeah.
And then when him and her were sitting together, he was like, yeah, we would have been at the Hill and I wouldn't have come up to you. And she goes, oh, thanks. And he's like, well, because, you're like a boss babe.
Yeah. So it's like, is he giving away the fact that like he's not really attracted to like other cultures or something? And then he's kind of like pulling it back. I don't know what the energy is. I can't tell if he's just being nerdy or if he's like hinting at that he's only dated white girls. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, he said that blatantly.
But I'm just saying, like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
I couldn't get past that one.
It weirded me out,
and
too.
it weirded me out, and his energy shifted, and it weirded me out. And on top of it as well, I feel like in their conversation so far, he's made a couple comments when they're sitting together where out of nowhere, he'll just kind of be like, well, you and I are both this way, so like, what do you think, that's going to be a problem? And then he waits for it and he goes, no, it's going to be perfect. And he keeps kind of throwing out potential issues with them, which again, as I'm like, is he analyzing, or is he feeling
that her feedback is not working, so that I'm gonna make up for it?
Or is he feeling like he's not in it
right
fully, and I don't know. So, and then we saw a preview of him saying, my ex-girlfriend texted me, and she's like, and you responded to her? And he's like, doesn't even fucking matter.
Right.
And then we see her crying and saying he presented himself as a good guy.
Interesting.
I'm like, is he one of these? Is he what we thought we were talking about, Mushroom Paul, where he's like a scientist that's out there just absolutely. Because he says, he's like, I just go to remote places and I'm not around people. We're like, sure.
Remote places like Miami, New York.
Are you out here just in the remote Miami, just being, who knows? Because she had said something that was a little concerning to her, was that he hadn't been in a relationship in 7 years.
Right.
And so I'm like, your ex from 7 years ago?
Right.
Or do we find out that there's a more recent girlfriend that you're not alluding to?
Yeah, right. Your ex of 7 years reaches out, I'm sure. Yeah, it'll be interesting. That I can't, they definitely have us like on hook, line, and sinker with that one.
I don't feel good about it, obviously, from the previews. But even before the previews, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
But I'm just telling you, Garrett, you don't deserve Taylor.
If you don't take her, Jess will.
Taylor is a literal goddess.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with her. I walked into the bathroom.
If you betray Taylor, you betray Jess. So you better watch it.
Evan was in the bathroom and I literally opened the door as he was peeing, and I was just like, I just want to let you know that I am in love with Taylor. I would choose her if we were on Love is Blind together.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Anyway, I love her, but we'll see. We'll see with that one coming up. Seems like we're going to get a lot of info here soon. Okay, we had to turn the air on, family. Sorry. It's cooking in the studio a little bit. But next couple we have is Steven and Monica. Chatty Steven.
It's funny. I like, at first when I was watching, I thought he really talks a lot. And then it was funny to get acknowledged later when she's like, can you shut the fuck up?
And then him even during his proposal, he's like, you love me even though I talk nonstop.
It was really funny to kind of feel like, man, this guy never kind of stops talking, but he's also like a very like. So when she addressed it, it was funny. I was like, okay, I'm not crazy.
I know. I was thinking the same thing when I was watching, and I was like, wow, that guy's really long-winded. Like every time she says something, it just keeps going.
And it's more than long-winded. I kind of realized what it is. It's the topic jumping.
Yeah,
it's like he's 5 conversations in one, so she never even got to like answer any of them. It's just he went on 9 of them.
He was going on a roll, and they were an interesting couple because Monica had said that she in her past has very much it's been about the physical, it's been about the money, about the jobs, all of these things, about the education, all of this. And he is someone who did a 2-year and is an electrician. And so he's not the typical guy that she would date. And she even mentioned like physically. Why are you laughing?
I was just thinking when she was just like, when it was like later on when he was getting a massage in Mexico.
Yeah.
And she's like, is he a guy that I would normally be attracted to? No. Is he a guy that like I'm sexually attracted to? No. Does he have a great job that makes a lot of money? No. Would I normally date someone who is like rich and has all this shit together? Yes. But I love him.
And so he is attractive to me because he is a beautiful man.
Listen, if I heard that, that'd be the end. I couldn't handle that. It'd be too devastating for me to be like, I love you for you, not because of all the things you aren't. And I'd be like, oh, great. So it takes a greater man to handle that type of beating online. Like she was being nice.
Yeah.
She didn't even realize how she was saying it, but she was like being nice, being
Yeah.
like nothing
Well,
about
I
him.
wonder, because again, these are ITMs, so you wonder if the couples are still together, what
Right.
that looks like for
But it
them
was just
sitting there watching it
nothing
together,
about
being
him
like,
as a person or the way he looks is I'm attracted to. It's that we were confined in rooms for long enough to where my reality was distorted. It's kind of what she was saying.
but you know, I didn't think that Monica, because she came in her ITMs being like, this was always the thing for me, this
Yeah.
really mattered, that I didn't think that Monica would end up like going for him.
Yeah.
And then even when they had their reveal at the after the proposal and then in Mexico,
Yeah.
I thought that she would very quickly start pushing away, but she didn't. She
No.
seemed to be very much into him and was not getting the ick. Like
And
she
she
kept
said
talking
she's
about
very
the
afraid
ick.
of the ick. So clearly she's gotten it before and it ruined her relationships.
And I think you can tell when she
And he's
gets
like, what's the ick? Now it's a new terrifying fear of mine. It was funny. He was like, what? You can get this anytime?
at any moment.
Holy shit.
15 years into marriage, you can get the
you can
ick.
get it anytime. And once you can't get rid of it.
But the two of them, when they were in the pods together, you know, a couple things. One, so here's my vibe from Steven. Obviously, Steven comes off, at least from my perspective, chatty Steven,
Yeah.
jovial Steven, likable Steven
Fun.
energy, you
Fun
know,
guy.
like, you know, pleasant, like,
Yes.
well, hello, you know, after the pool party, he was like, what a beautiful thing to see all the women supporting and
he said-
lifting each
no,
other
he said
up.
it was gorgeous
It was
to see
gorgeous
the women
to see
supporting each
all
other.
the women
Bit of a
supporting
Santa
each
guy,
other,
like a young Santa.
lifting each other up.
Yeah.
But then simultaneously from Steven, what I cannot shake Evan
Yeah.
is that he is the king of Joe Rogan. Like, I
right,
feel
right.
it in my bones that Steven is like Joe Rogan's biggest fan.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean by that when I say this, family. Like,
Sure.
you know that there is just this Joe Rogan, and especially with the chattiness of it, I can just see Steven cornering you at a party and being like, well, on the most recent JRE episode, you know, he did have a scientist coming on and they were talking about da-da-da, and you know, I think a high protein value meal and da-da-da, and just where it'd be like incessant information only coming from Joe Rogan.
For me, it's not that analytical. For me, it's more like him, like
I don't think it's analytical. I think it's just parroting back
Right,
what he's heard
but
on Joe Rogan.
to kind of echo what you're saying, but kind of have my twist on it. I think it's more of a like, with the boys, I'm a completely different person with my views on the world. So it's like me
Ding,
and my
ding,
four
ding,
friends
ding,
go
ding.
golfing. The way we're talking about marriage, life, women, politics, very different than how I say it to Monica. You know what I'm saying? So
Evan?
it's like Monica, he's like, I'm a pretty balanced person. I'm right in the middle and I got this and that. And I think the rights for this.
and I regret my
and then-
voting mistake. And yeah.
But then like when he's with the boys, it loosens up and he's just like, here's actually how I am.
You know
and
what,
so
Evan?
I don't think he's like a mean guy. I don't think he's like, it doesn't seem like a guy who's like, you know, playing games really, almost like he's unaware of it. Almost just seems like that's what he's always done. And so maybe that's been modeled for him. He said his dad seems like a hardcore guy too. It almost just seems like he's a guy that's like, has his views, but has learned that his views aren't successful with women. So I'm going to kind of keep them low and then maybe tweak them a bit to make them sound a little more satisfactory.
Yeah, it
That's kinda
definitely
the
felt
energy.
like answers wrapped in a bow.
Yes. Like he
I
kind of,
agree
I've
with
gone
you.
through enough of these dates where the woman recoiled from me when I said that one
Yep,
thing.
yep.
So I'm going to tweak that one. I'm going to tweak these two. I'm going to tweak these three.
You know what's interesting, Evan? That's a very interesting point. Very interesting. The
Yeah.
whole the golf course.
Yeah, it's like
the
him-
locker room. Like, what does that
It's a
look
different-
like
completely
versus
different.
your conversations
Completely
with
different.
Monica? One of the things he brought up was his cheating.
Yeah.
So he was very forthright. You know, she didn't even ask. He just kind of somehow got into that conversation where
Right.
he was just like, you know, by the way, I didn't know you didn't ask, but you know, people have different opinions about cheating, and I want to let
He's
you know.
definitely a guy that incriminates himself a lot. There's no
Yeah.
question about that. Whatever happens, he's definitely the guy that like talks so much that like he'll just, you don't have to say anything. He'll just out himself, whatever
Yeah.
he did wrong.
Yeah, and he was just like, yeah, you know, I did, you know, cheating wise, I slid into someone's DMs and I was emotionally cheating, and I learned from that a lot, and it was very, very bad. And you know, listen, people can grow and people can change.
He's
and
like, I've been going to therapy nonstop about him.
and I
Send me the name.
I believe 100% that people grow and
course.
change. Don't you get me wrong.
Oh my gosh.
But But I will say, you know, when I hear it, the alarm bells go off where you go, okay, like patterns are patterns. And so if someone's capable of that once, then they can be capable of it again. And so that right away kind of got in my mind. And like, it's like I simultaneously appreciate the honesty.
I don't think he can help it, but yes.
I don't think, you know, so part of me thinks like he probably is giving the full truth about it. But then it's also like noted.
Yes, big time.
Noted, you know what I mean? So that in the conversation with them was very interesting. I will say, I mean, she's like, I'm so sorry you went through that.
Yeah,
and I was
I'm
like,
so sorry you cheated. Wait,
I was like, wait, what?
You're very understanding.
There was also parts in the conversation which, look, listen, I am a white woman, so it's not my place to speak for how a woman of color is going to feel about certain things, but there were questionable conversations that were happening there as well. And I was just, I was surprised in the end when the proposal happened, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, I mean like that she accepted it.
Oh, got it.
I was surprised. And then I was also surprised as well, like I said, when she saw him and afterwards was like smelling his shirt and was like, I love the ring, but this is what matters the most to me, because he brought her a shirt and sprayed it with like his cologne or something. And she's like, this is what matters more to me. And I believed her. I didn't feel like she was selling a load. Like I felt like she meant it. But then they go to Mexico together and seemingly it's going very well. They're enjoying each other's company. In fact, the poor acupuncturist had to hear them talking about his boners.
Yeah, she just was like, I don't care. We're just going right after it. There was no like hold back at all.
She also compared his boner to a needle.
Yeah, again, another diss that I was like, are you calling him needle dick? Or is that just like because it's standing up, it's like a boner? I couldn't tell.
It's like, I don't know.
Epic.
It's like, well, okay, thanks. But they were talking about boners in front of this acupuncturist, and this poor guy is just like,
I did not sign up for this. I've just been working.
Can we stop? But they had good chemistry. They seemed physically connected to each other. All was well and good during the pool party. You know, when the women were interrogating the men, he was like, sweet. Look at her, the love of my life. He was being very sweet, very loving and affirming to her. She seemed to be very melting over it. But then they go back to the room right before the episode ends, and he starts chatting, and he's like saying two nice things. He's like, you and I were talking about the women. He's like, and you and I together, we compliment each other so much because I feel like, you know, there's you and you're this way and you're a boss, you're organized, and me, and I'm kind of, you know, like, let's stop in the moment. But it's just so long.
And she snapped at him.
And she just goes, babe, I love you, but are you fucking kidding me?
And she was tweaked because she didn't really recover. She was just like, shut the fuck up. And he was like, oh, sorry about that. Yeah, sorry.
And she's like, it was funny, but it's starting to not get funny anymore.
Yeah.
And he handles the rejection well. He doesn't have like a reaction to it. I do have to say he seems like he handles emotions and that very well so far. But
like he handles her being mad at him and not like, we're in a fight now.
Right.
He kind of took it and went, oh, I'm sorry.
And I'm like, has the ick begun? Has the ick begun? Is this the beginning of the ick?
Well, it's tough when you aren't generally attracted to someone and you're only attracted to their personality.
But a huge part of their personality is talking
and then a part of the personality starting to wear on you. I think that could happen because you saw him like then trying to suck up to her, getting her slippers, like bad at her feet. You know what I mean? Like being like really like puppy doggy to like get her back. It'll be interesting to see is that their just their dynamic, or does he know that he barely has her and so he's gonna, you know?
Well, from the previews though, we see him crying and being like, this is just all happening so fast. I'm very overwhelmed by it, which seems surprising because he hit me like the one who was like so down all
just,
in.
What do I got to do to get you? Yeah.
But then she is bawling and she's like, I can't believe this is happening. And he's sitting on the couch later saying like, I made a massive mistake.
Right.
This is my prediction.
He's like, I emotionally cheated again. Damn it. The therapy didn't work.
It's happened again. My prediction is that she's going to start getting the ick. He's going to start pulling back and saying he's overwhelmed by everything. He's then going to end it with her. And then he's going to come back and be like, I made a massive mistake.
Yeah.
But because he leaves, I think she's going to be devastated because she's like, even though I have the ick,
She's like, you're
you're leaving me?
Yeah, right. It's one of
Yeah,
those.
she's a goddamn supermodel.
Right.
Monica's a supermodel.
Right.
And it's like, you're leaving me like for realsies?
Right.
And so I think that's what's going to happen.
Okay, that's a really intricate concept there. Okay.
Thank you. I mean, I don't want this for her, but I kind of hope that the drama is more like he did something crazy and is like, I made a huge
Well, whenever you see a
mistake.
disparity like that too, you kind of go like, all right, she deserves a man who's worships her.
Correct.
So if he's not, then you're like, there's something wrong in the world.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
That kind of
As
energy.
a viewer, I'm like, this
Yeah.
woman,
Right.
come on now. That's my guess.
Yeah. Okay. I
That's
think
my
that's a good
prediction.
guess. I think that's a good
so
guess. Yeah, I like
we
that.
shall see. We shall see. But are you catching the tone, at least from my end, where I think all these couples are going to fail?
Yeah,
For all
I'm
the
getting
reasons.
that from you.
I'm telling you, I'm feeling it in my core. I couldn't shake it from the first episode to number 6. I was like, there is something, even with these steady couples, everything happened it feels like too fast where they don't actually know each other this time.
Yeah.
And there almost wasn't enough drama and controversy and confrontation in the pods to get them to know each other better.
Yeah.
Like the foursome, right? Leo, Brittany, Nick, and Hannah had that.
Yeah.
But the other ones really didn't come up against, at least from what we see, any issues. So it almost felt like everyone coasted and didn't actually really get to know each
Yeah.
other in those tough
I agree.
ways.
I agree.
Versus in other seasons, there was more like, you said what, you did what, oh, you have this opinion, I don't agree with it.
Fought in the pods
Yes.
and then kind of came back
This
through
one,
it.
it's like everything like is
Everything
going.
was
They're all just talking about
hunky-dory.
really intense things and emotions, and it's going all But then
There was
all of
no
a sudden,
friction, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. You bring that up.
with that being said, we have
Yeah.
our final couple to discuss, Tim and Alex, who in the pods talk about deep emotional connection.
Yeah.
Tim and Alex in the pods immediately were
It was deep. It was
going heavy.
family. It was death. It was illness. It was connection. It was tears. It was so many deep.
It was
deep
this
things.
like quiet, gentle connection where they're talking about these heavy things and they were holding each other. You could feel them like holding each other even though they weren't like able to touch
seemed
each
really
other.
beautiful in the pods.
It really did. And so it's like you have him talking about how both of his sisters passed away, which was so tragic. And he gives her one of their bracelets. And when he
Powerful.
said, I realized the other day that I'm going to be able to give my parents another daughter,
I mean, yeah.
I started like crying.
Which is crazy because it's like the transformation afterwards felt
know.
like two separate couples.
I know. So they're like that in the pods, right? And then we have Alex, who's talking about, I believe it was Alex who both of her parents have MS.
Yes.
And who are they're holding each other and taking care of each other. We find out about her grandfather, who was the national secretary of the Nation of Islam, and about her family and like the power behind her family. And she's opening up about this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like,
They were very open, very real, very connected, weirdly like trauma connecting.
and like hearing
through-
about two really beautiful families.
Yeah, they both praised their family, right? He said like I
Yeah.
had the best childhood ever and all this stuff. So
And then even later, it was like Marissa and Monica talking about how amazing Alex's family is. And so you're like,
Right.
we have these two beautiful families, these two beautiful people who are talking
lots
about
of tears.
all this emotional stuff. They're drawing the pictures, painting the pictures. They both painted a bird and a bee.
Right.
They were like part in the same mindset. He proposes to her. Oh, by the way, quick side note, I'm jumping back. But right before Garrett proposed and Taylor gave Garrett the letters from her grandparents.
Yes. That was insane.
Another moment where I was sobbing.
That was insane. Yes.
There was something about like hearing a letter from long ago
Yeah.
of like communication and love back and
Yeah,
forth that
powerful.
really messed me up in an emotional way. Anyway, but these two have this dynamic going on to the point that Tim was saying, I know that we can get deep together, but like, will we have fun together? Mm-hmm. He proposes to her.
No.
No. He proposes to her. They have the reveal, and he's immediately doing like the whole dog
I got
thing.
the dog in me thing.
The motherfucking dog. Woof woof.
She hates it.
And it's not even like I'm laughing. It's like she immediately
She's
is
repulsed.
like, make it stop.
And he loves doing that.
And from that moment on, Evan,
That was it.
I was like, I don't recognize both of them from the pods. In the pods, they had an energy, and out of the pods, he's constantly kind of ribbing her.
Constantly razzing her, ribbing her.
And she's constantly-
And she's grumpy and snapping at him.
And annoyed
They
with
became like
him.
an old married couple, like
I was
overnight.
like, who are these
Like,
two
where's
people?
the emotional connection of your families? And now we're just got like, ew, you're gross. Oh, you're annoying all day.
But then when you saw like when you saw Alex then with her girlfriends, she was the
Back to
love
life.
bug. And I'm like, oh. So then I'm sitting there and I'm grinding because I'm like, what is happening? And there was a moment where they were out together and he put on the hat. And then later she was like, I hate your fashion. And he was like, why do you come for my fashion? She's like, no, you know, I just love giving you a hard time. And so I'm like, are both of the way that
Love
they're
language, just be like mean to each
are
other.
both of their, you know, like when some people are playful,
Sure.
they just rib each other.
Yeah.
And I felt like both of them rib their partners as a way of being playful, but it got to a point where it became
But it's got to be up
very
against
real.
a backdrop of cuddly cozy.
Yes, but it became very real. But I'm confused because I'm getting the vibe from her that like she does not like him and everything he does annoys her and gives her the ick. But at the same time, when he would start to kind of pull back, she'd be like, are you sure you want to be with me? Are you sure you want to be with
Well,
me?
to be honest with you, and I hate to say this, but at the end of the whole thing, it felt very immature to me. Both of them felt very immature to me.
Yeah.
Because remember when he didn't sleep over at the end?
Yes.
Okay.
So after the pool party,
Right.
you know, they've been, it seems like
Like they're like, is this their dynamic? I guess, or
I
it's
was
just not very nice.
That's the thing. I was
It's
trying
just
to
like
read again. Is this their playful dynamic? But then at the pool party, they seemed like they were having a fun time.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we hear Monica go, "What happened with Tim and Alex
Right.
last night?" We see them the next
that
morning.
they had slept in separate rooms. But the whole argument is about the fact that so this is the double immaturity I'm saying. She just shuts down and just says, I was homesick and I didn't want to talk about it. So she kind of, what's seemingly immaturity, just goes, I'm feeling a certain way.
Yeah.
So I'm just shutting off our entire experience. I'm not communicating to you how I feel. So now you're guessing, thinking that we're like something's wrong. And it's your fault, basically, that I feel this. Well, not even that I feel this way, but just like, how dare you ask me how I feel? So that's super immature and weird. And then his reaction's super immature. So instead of being supportive and there for her and being like, "Are you whatever you need?" He goes like, "That's disrespect. That's this.
Packs
That's
his
that.
bags
I don't
and
take that shit."
leaves.
They get into a huge yelling match and then leave. So they both like aren't emotionally there for each other, because I would say that she should be like communicative and open and saying, I'm really struggling, can
Well,
you
and
help me with
also-
this? And he should be like, what do you need? I'm
Well-
here for you. So it was like this weird, like they both, I don't know, it's almost like all that negative energy kind of got to a place and then exploded.
And it's like we hear that she covered his mouth.
Yeah,
He
so it's
says
just like
he says that
he was screaming.
she's like, you were yelling, and then he was saying that, well, I don't do well with anyone calling me something other than my name.
Right, so she's calling him names.
Who
It
knows
was
what
just
she
like,
said? And then
whoa.
he packed his bags and left, and it was like very not okay, very unhealthy,
Yeah.
and he
By the way, guys,
quickly.
Day one. You know what I'm saying? We're not
Yeah.
talking year one, need some counseling. We're talking day one.
Technically 2 days, technically 2 days.
I mean, I don't understand
or
how
the
it's not.
second night, or the right before the
Unless
second
you
night
find someone
closed.
hideous and you're panicking about that, how is it not rainbows and butterflies? Like, it truly is amazing.
Yeah, I don't understand. So like their dynamic was wild, where you're like, what? And I will say though, when he came into the room, they were both being very like not in front of the camera talking about what happened, and they kind of kept saying, well, we both know what happened. So I'm also curious, like, what are we missing in this?
Yes.
What actually happened? How did the fight start off? What actually went down? Who said what? Because we didn't see it, and also they were being a little elusive in
Yes.
front of the camera to what happened, which I understand. I respect
Yes.
the whole privacy of it, but it's still kind of like as if you were trying to read what went down. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not sure. So, I mean, my guess is that that's not going to work
Yeah,
out.
this is great.
But she was asking him, she was like, well, I want you to stay.
Yeah,
and
you
he's
could
like,
tell that she felt like it blew up.
yeah. But I also, it's interesting because that's what I'm saying. I get the vibe like she doesn't like him.
No.
But then she wants him to stay, which is confusing to me.
But I get the fact too, there's a mixture here that he's got all these rules about like in his relationship, like I don't do this, I don't fight about this, I don't do this, I got a dog in me. He's got this kind of mask he's got going on. And then she's got this like nothing makes me happy.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to be bringing out the best in each other at all.
No, it does not feel like the right fit.
It seems like someone needs to be the jovial, fun one, and then one can be the razzy jabber.
Yeah, or at least
But they're both kind of
or at least
razzing-
build your relationship up more.
But no one's sweet.
It was just
Everyone's
weird
kind
though
of,
because in the
I
pods they
know.
were so
I know. But
not
maybe
that
they
way.
mistook trauma connection for chemistry and love.
Yeah,
Maybe
perhaps.
maybe them just dumping onto each other was like, wow, this is actual deep. When in reality, it's like, no, that's just a small fraction of a relationship. A relationship is day-to-day chemistry. You guys hang out and talk and have fun together.
Yeah.
So
perhaps. Well,
that was a beast.
it doesn't look good in my opinion. Even though we technically have like a few solid couples, in my opinion, it doesn't look good.
It doesn't look good, but bad relationships make for sometimes good television.
Very
so
true. Very true.
probably gonna have a good time on this one.
Actually very excited to see
Yes.
episodes 7, 8, and 9 when
think a
they
lot will be
finish
revealed.
off Mexico, and I love when they go home.
That's when
I
the shit
love-
hits the fan.
Always, and then they're partying at nighttime,
Going
and
to
there's
work.
the drama. Oh gosh, I can't wait. I cannot wait.
I'm excited.
Well, family, we love you. Tune in on Friday for our Golden Bachelorette recap, and then next week on Tuesday for Love is Blind episodes 7, 8, and 9.
We'll see you
All
then.
right, we love you all.
Mwah. Bye.